I used to believe there were two kinds of people in a family: the ones who made problems and the ones who quietly cleaned them up. For most of my marriage, I thought I was the second kind. My name is Rachel Bennett. I was 34 years old, living in Chicago with my husband Mark in a 2-bedroom apartment we had been renting for almost 6 years. It was nothing fancy. The kitchen cabinets were old, the bathroom tiles were cracked in 2 corners, and every winter, the bedroom window let in just enough cold air to remind us we were still renters. But it was ours. Or at least, it felt like ours while we were saving for something better. Every month, Mark and I put money into a house fund. Not a dream house, not some huge place with marble countertops and a 3-car garage, just a small home outside the city, with a little backyard, maybe a porch, and enough room for the life we kept telling each other was just around the corner. I worked as a financial operations manager at a mid-sized insurance company downtown. Numbers were my comfort zone. Budgets, spreadsheets, credit reports, savings goals, those were things I understood. I liked knowing where every dollar went. I liked paying bills early. I liked watching our savings grow, even if it was slow. Mark used to tease me about it. "You know," he said one Saturday morning while I was reviewing our monthly spending, "most people don't look this peaceful staring at a spreadsheet." I smiled without looking up from my laptop. Most people don't realize spreadsheets don't lie. He leaned against the kitchen counter, coffee mug in hand. "That sounds like something a villain would say before taking over a company." "No," I said. "That sounds like something a woman says when she wants a mortgage approval." Mark laughed and kissed the top of my head. That was us. Simple, careful, ordinary in a way I was proud of. But Mark's extended family was not simple. They were loud, opinionated, deeply involved in each other's lives, and very good at pretending that bad behavior was just family being family. The center of that family was Mark's mother, Linda Bennett. Linda was 63, widowed, and treated every Sunday dinner like a holiday. She lived in a brick house in Oak Park, the same house where Mark had grown up. The dining room had framed family photos on every wall, polished silverware in a cabinet no one was allowed to touch, and a long wooden table where everyone had an assigned seat whether they admitted it or not. Linda believed in loyalty. Unfortunately, she also believed loyalty meant never embarrassing the family, no matter what someone had done. That belief would become a problem later, but at the beginning it was just part of the background noise. Every few weeks, Mark and I drove to Linda's house for dinner. His cousin Daniel usually came with his wife, Vanessa Harper, and their teenage son, Ethan. Daniel was quiet and kind, the sort of man who always asked if anyone needed help carrying groceries, then actually waited for an answer. Vanessa was the opposite. Vanessa entered rooms like she expected lighting to change for her. She was 38, tall, polished, and always dressed like she had just stepped out of a luxury lifestyle ad. She worked as a client relations manager at Crown and Lake Realty, a high-end real estate firm that sold condos and penthouses to people who said things like winter home and investment property without irony. Every time I saw Vanessa, she had something new. A new coat, a new pair of sunglasses, a new gold bracelet that flashed when she reached for her wine glass, a new designer bag carefully placed where everyone could see it. She never simply owned expensive things, she performed them. That Sunday evening, she arrived 15 minutes late. Linda had already put the roast chicken on the table. Mark was helping his mother pour water. Daniel was apologizing for Vanessa's delay, even though he had clearly been waiting in the car with her. Then the front door opened. "Sorry, everyone," Vanessa called, though she did not sound sorry at all. Traffic was a nightmare. She walked into the dining room wearing a cream-colored blazer, sharp black trousers, nude heels, and a soft beige designer handbag tucked over one arm. The bag looked expensive in the quiet, obvious way expensive things do. Smooth leather, gold hardware, perfect stitching. Not too flashy, but just noticeable enough to make sure everyone knew it had cost more than some people's monthly rent. Linda's eyes widened. "Oh, Vanessa," she said. "That bag is beautiful." Vanessa smiled and set it on the empty chair beside her, not on the floor. Never on the floor. "Thank you," she said. "I decided to treat myself." Daniel glanced at the bag, then down at his plate. His expression changed for half a second, so fast I almost missed it. Not anger exactly, more like exhaustion. I noticed because I was good at noticing details. Vanessa caught me looking. "Rachel," she said sweetly, "you like it?" I smiled politely. "It's pretty." "Pretty?" She laughed, looking around the table. "That's such a Rachel word." Mark looked up from his plate. "What's that supposed to mean?" Vanessa waved one manicured hand. "Nothing bad. Rachel is just practical. She sees a designer bag and says pretty. I see craftsmanship, image, confidence." I took a sip of water. "I usually see a price tag." A few people chuckled. Mark smiled. Daniel looked relieved for a moment, but Vanessa's smile tightened. "Well," she said, leaning back in her chair, "a woman should reward herself when she works hard. There's nothing wrong with wanting quality." "No one said there was," I replied. She tilted her head, studying me. "You should try it sometime." The table went quiet. Linda gave Vanessa a warning look, but not a strong one. In that family, Vanessa's little insults were treated like weather, unpleasant sometimes, but supposedly impossible to control. I knew the routine. Vanessa would say something sharp. Everyone would pretend it was a joke. If I reacted, I would be the one making things awkward. So I smiled. "I'll keep that in mind." Vanessa leaned closer, her perfume drifting across the table. Something floral, expensive, and too strong. "I mean it," she said. "You're still young, Rachel. You don't have to dress like you're preparing for a recession." Daniel muttered. Vanessa? What? She asked. I'm helping. Mark's hand found mine under the table. He squeezed gently. I knew what that squeeze meant. Please let it go. So I did. Not because Vanessa was right, not because it didn't hurt, but because I had spent years learning that peace in Mark's family usually meant swallowing little pieces of myself and pretending they didn't cut on the way down. The rest of dinner moved on. Linda talked about a neighbor's new fence. Daniel talked about his repair shop. Ethan barely looked up from his phone. Vanessa described a luxury condo showing she had handled that week, making sure everyone knew the client had arrived in a Bentley. I answered when spoken to. I laughed when expected. I helped Linda clear plates after dessert. In the kitchen, while the dishwasher hummed, Linda gave me a soft smile. You know Vanessa, she said quietly. She doesn't always think before she speaks. I rinsed a serving spoon under warm water. She thinks, I said. She just doesn't care. Linda sighed. Rachel? I looked at her. What? She's family. There it was, the magic sentence, the one that turned bad behavior into something everyone else was responsible for absorbing. I dried my hands on a towel. I know, Linda touched my arm. You and Mark are doing well. Don't let little comments get to you. I nodded because arguing would not change anything. But inside I thought, why is it always the person being insulted who gets asked to be graceful? When Mark and I finally left Linda's house, the sky was dark and the air smelled like rain. I sat in the passenger seat, watching streetlights slide across the windshield. Mark drove in silence for a few minutes before saying, I'm sorry about Vanessa. I kept my eyes on the window. You always say that. I know, and she always does it again. He exhaled slowly. She's insecure. I turned to him. She wears $4,000 outfits to dinner and insults my blouse. That's not insecurity. That's a hobby. Mark almost smiled, but then he saw my face and stopped. You're right, he said. I should have said something. Yes, I replied. You should have. That was all I said. Not because that was all I felt, but because I was tired. Tired of explaining why disrespect was disrespectful. Tired of being reasonable about things that were not reasonable. Tired of hearing that someone was just like that, as if it were a medical diagnosis. When we got home, I changed into sweatpants, washed my face, and made tea. Mark went to take a shower. I sat at the small kitchen table with my phone, doing what I always did on Sunday nights. I checked our accounts. It was a habit. Some people scrolled social media before bed. I reviewed transactions. Rent had cleared. Electric bill was pending. Grocery charge from Saturday looked right. Gas station charge looked right. Then I saw it. A charge for $2,480. The merchant name made me sit up straighter. It was from a luxury boutique on Michigan Avenue. I blinked once, then again. At first, my brain tried to make it make sense. Maybe it was a hold. Maybe it was fraud from some online data breach. Maybe I was reading it wrong. I tapped the transaction, posted today, in person, $2,480. My stomach tightened. I scrolled down. There was another charge, $690 from a designer shoe store. Then another, $350 from a fragrance counter at a department store. All from earlier that afternoon. All in Chicago. All while my credit card had been in my wallet. I sat so still the kitchen seemed to grow louder around me. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the wall clock. Water moving through pipes somewhere in the building. Mark came out of the bathroom in a t-shirt and pajama pants, towel around his neck. Rach? I did not answer. He walked closer. What's wrong? I held out my phone. He took it, looked at the screen, and frowned. What is this? That's what I'm trying to figure out. He sat across from me. You didn't buy anything today? No. Did you order something online? No. His eyes moved over the charges again. Almost $3,500? $3,485, I said automatically. Even in shock, my mind did the math. Mark looked at me. We need to call the bank. I'm locking the card first. My hands were steady, but I could feel my pulse beating in my throat. I opened the banking app, froze the card, then called the number on the back. The automated voice was calm in a way that made me want to scream. After several prompts, I reached a fraud representative. Thank you for calling Cardholder Services, the woman said. My name is Angela. How can I help you tonight? I explained the charges. Angela asked several verification questions. Full name, address, last 4 digits of my social security number, recent legitimate transaction, mother's maiden name. Then she went quiet for a moment. I do see the charges you mentioned, she said. You're stating that you did not authorize these purchases? That's correct. And your card is currently in your possession? Yes. Has anyone else had access to your card recently? A family member, friend, coworker, spouse? I looked at Mark. He looked back at me. No, I said slowly. But even as I said it, something in my memory shifted. A small scene came back to me. 1 week earlier at Linda's birthday gathering. Linda's youngest grandchild had spilled juice all over my blouse. I had jumped up from the couch, laughing it off, trying to help clean the child's hands before he started crying. My purse had been slipping off my shoulder. Vanessa had appeared beside me. Here, she said, taking my purse. I'll put this somewhere safe. You deal with the disaster. At the time, I had barely thought about it. She had carried my purse into the hallway. She'd been gone for maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3. I remembered seeing her near the side table afterward, checking her lipstick in the mirror. I remembered her saying, You really should get a smaller wallet, Rachel. That thing is like a filing cabinet. My mouth went dry. Angela was still speaking. We'll open a fraud claim and issue a replacement card. Because these appear to be in-person transactions, we may request additional documentation. You may also file a police report, especially if you believe your card information was used by someone known to you. Someone known to you. The words landed heavily. Mark must have seen my expression change. What? He whispered. I shook my head. Not yet. I was not ready to say it out loud, because once I did, there would be no taking it back. After the call ended, I placed my phone on the table. Mark leaned forward. Rachel, what are you thinking? I folded my hands together. I'm thinking about Vanessa's new bag. Mark's face changed immediately. No, I didn't say anything. You're implying it. I'm remembering. He stood up, then sat back down again, restless. Vanessa is a lot of things, but stealing your credit card? Come on. I looked at him. Is that impossible? He opened his mouth, closed it. That silence gave me my answer. I pushed the phone toward him. The charges were made today. Designer boutique, shoes, perfume. She showed up tonight with a brand new designer bag and spent half of dinner making sure I noticed it. That doesn't prove anything. I know. My voice was quiet, too quiet. I know it doesn't prove anything. That's why I'm not accusing her. Mark rubbed both hands over his face. Maybe your card got skimmed. Maybe. Maybe someone made a duplicate. Maybe. Maybe this has nothing to do with Vanessa. I stood and carried my untouched tea to the sink. Maybe. But inside, I remembered Vanessa holding my purse. I remembered her comment about my wallet. I remembered the way Daniel had looked at that bag. And I remembered Vanessa smiling across Linda's dinner table as she said, "A woman should reward herself when she works hard." That night, I did not sleep. Mark eventually did. I heard his breathing settle into a slow rhythm beside me. But I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling while the city lights made pale shapes across the bedroom wall. I did not want it to be Vanessa. That was the truth. Not because I liked her. I didn't. Not because I trusted her. I didn't trust her much at all. But there is a difference between disliking someone and realizing they might have stolen from you. Dislike is uncomfortable. Theft is personal. The next morning, I called the bank again before work. I asked if they could tell me more about the transactions. The representative was careful. There were limits to what she could share while the claim was pending, but she confirmed one detail. The purchases had been made in person. The chip transaction had failed at the first store. After that, the card information had been entered manually. Manually. I wrote the word down on a yellow notepad at my desk, then stared at it. Manual entry meant someone likely had the card details, the number, the expiration date, the security code, and possibly my billing zip code. My fingers tightened around the pen. At lunch, I sat alone in the break room, barely touching my salad. Around me, coworkers talked about meetings and weekend plans. Someone laughed near the vending machine. Someone complained about printer toner. Everything sounded normal. But inside me, something had shifted. I thought about my mother. When I was young, my uncle had borrowed money from her over and over. Emergency car repairs, rent shortages, medical bills that probably never existed. My mother always said yes because he was family. Then one day he disappeared from our lives, leaving her with unpaid loans and a sadness she tried to hide. Years later, she told me, "Rachel, some people don't steal all at once. They test what you'll tolerate first." I had never forgotten that. And now I wondered if Vanessa had been testing me for years, with little insults, little boundary pushes, little moments where she touched my purse, borrowed my phone, asked questions that felt harmless. I opened Instagram. I shouldn't have, but I did. Vanessa's newest post was already up. She was standing in front of the glass doors at Crown & Lake Realty, one hip-tilted beige designer bag on her arm, sunglasses pushed into her hair. The photo looked professionally posed, though I knew Daniel had probably taken it in a parking lot. The caption read, "Worked hard, earned harder." I stared at those 4 words until my eyes burned. Worked hard, earned harder. My card paid for that bag. Maybe. Probably. No. I still needed proof. I locked my phone and placed it face down on the table. That was the moment my anger changed. Before then, it had been hot and shaky. The kind of anger that makes you want to call someone and demand answers. The kind that makes you type a message, delete it, type it again, and imagine every possible response. But sitting in that break room, looking at Vanessa's smiling face and that stolen-looking bag, my anger became something else. Cold, focused, useful. I was not going to scream. I was not going to beg. I was not going to let the family turn this into a misunderstanding before I even knew the truth. I was going to do what I did best. I was going to follow the numbers. That evening, when I got home, Mark was already there. He had cooked pasta, which he only did when he felt guilty. The kitchen smelled like garlic and tomato sauce. I placed my purse on the chair and sat down. He turned from the stove. Hey. He watched me carefully. How was work? I called the bank again. His shoulders dropped. What did they say? In-person charges, manual entry after the chip failed. Mark closed his eyes for a second. That still doesn't mean... I know what it doesn't mean, I interrupted. He looked surprised. I rarely cut him off. I softened my voice, but only slightly. I'm not asking you to accuse anyone, but I need you to stop trying to explain it away before we have facts. Mark was quiet. Then he nodded. You're right. I wanted to believe that would be enough, but family pressure does not arrive all at once. It gathers slowly like storm clouds. The first text came from Linda after dinner. Hi, sweetheart. Mark told me there was some issue with your credit card. How awful. Let us know if you need anything. I read it twice. Then I looked at Mark. You told your mother? He looked uncomfortable. She asked why I sounded stressed. And you told her? I didn't mention Vanessa. That's not the point. Mark sighed. She's my mom, Rachel. I laughed once without humor. Yes, I'm aware. A minute later, another text arrived. Linda again. I'm sure it's just some online scam. These things happen all the time now. Try not to let it upset you too much. Try not to let it upset you too much. I set the phone down carefully, because if I held it any tighter, I might have thrown it. Mark saw my face. She means well. I looked at him. That sentence has protected a lot of bad behavior in your family. He flinched. I did not apologize. The next morning, the bank emailed me temporary claim documents. I printed them at work and placed them in a folder. Then I printed my recent credit card statement, then screenshots of Vanessa's Instagram post, then a blank timeline where I began writing down every relevant date. Linda's birthday party, Vanessa holding my purse, the Sunday dinner, the charges, the Instagram post, the bank calls. Each line made the picture clearer. Not complete, but clearer. That afternoon, Angela from the bank called me back. Ms. Bennett, she said, I wanted to let you know that the merchant may have security footage and a signed receipt. However, those are typically released to law enforcement as part of an official investigation. Law enforcement. The phrase made the office around me seem to tilt. You mean I would need to file a police report? That would be recommended if you believe this was unauthorized use by a known individual. There it was again, a known individual. I thanked her and ended the call. For a long moment, I just sat there. Then I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence beneath the timeline. If it was Vanessa, asking for the money back will not be enough, because this was no longer just about $3,485. It was about the way she had smiled across the dinner table. It was about the way everyone expected me to be quiet before I even had a chance to be angry. It was about all the little moments I had swallowed because peace was supposedly more important than respect. I closed the folder and placed it in my desk drawer. That night, Mark and I were invited back to Linda's house for the following weekend. A small family dinner, Linda said, but I knew better. There are no small family dinners when someone wants you to stay silent. And as I looked at the message, one thought settled calmly in my mind. If they wanted me to act like nothing happened, they were going to be disappointed, because I was done confusing silence with kindness. By Friday morning, I had opened the folder so many times that the edges of the papers were starting to curl. I knew I looked calm from the outside. At work, I answered emails, I approved reports. I sat through a budget meeting where 2 department heads argued for 20 minutes about printer costs as if the company's future depended on toner. I nodded in the right places. I typed notes. I smiled when someone made a joke. But beneath the surface, my mind kept returning to the same details. Vanessa holding my purse, the manual card entry, the designer bag on the dining room chair, her Instagram caption. Worked hard, earned harder. Every time I thought about those words, something in me tightened. The problem was not just that someone had used my credit card. The problem was that I already knew what would happen if I brought it up with Mark's family. They would not ask what had happened to me. They would ask how quietly I could survive it. That was how things worked in the Bennett family. Problems were not measured by the damage they caused. They were measured by how much noise they made. And I was about to make noise. Friday evening, Mark came home later than usual. He walked through the apartment door carrying a paper bag from the Thai place near our building. That was another guilt signal. Pasta meant mild guilt. Takeout from my favorite restaurant meant he knew something was wrong and did not know how to fix it. Peace offering, he asked, lifting the bag slightly. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open and the fraud folder beside me. That depends, I said. Are we at war? He gave a tired smile. I hope not. He set the food on the counter and came over, glancing at the folder. You're still working on this? I looked up at him. Someone spent almost $3,500 on my card, Mark. Yes, I'm still working on it. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. I mean, maybe we should wait and see what the bank does before involving everyone. I leaned back. Everyone is already involved. Your mother invited us to dinner tomorrow. She invites us to dinner all the time. Not 2 days after you told her my credit card was used. Mark looked away. That was all the confirmation I needed. I closed my laptop slowly. What did she say to you? He rubbed the back of his neck. She's worried. About me? He hesitated. I gave a small laugh. Of course not. Rachel. No, really. Is she worried that I had thousands of dollars stolen from me? Or is she worried I might say Vanessa's name at the dinner table? Mark did not answer quickly enough. I stood and began taking containers out of the takeout bag, more to keep my hands busy than because I was hungry. She just doesn't want this to turn into a family fight, he said. I turned around. It became a family fight the second someone in your family might have stolen from me. You don't know that yet. I know enough to ask questions. And if you're wrong, then I'll apologize. And if you're right, he looked at me then. I held his gaze. If I'm right, then everyone needs to stop acting like my silence is the solution. Mark exhaled and lowered his head. For a moment, I felt sorry for him. I really did. Mark had grown up in a family where conflict was treated like a fire. His mother's solution was always to smother it fast, even if something underneath kept burning. He had learned early that keeping peace meant staying quiet. But I had not married him so I could disappear inside his family's habits. After dinner, I printed one more copy of the charges and placed it at the front of the folder. I did not plan to accuse Vanessa outright. Not yet, but I was not going to walk into Linda's house empty-handed while everyone tried to convince me I had imagined the smoke. Saturday afternoon was gray and cold, the kind of Chicago weather that made every street look tired. Mark drove us to Oak Park in silence. His hand stayed tight around the steering wheel. Halfway there, he said, "Can we agree on one thing?" I looked at him. What? Can we not use the word theft until we know for sure? I stared through the windshield. What word would you prefer? I don't know. Unauthorized use. That's what theft looks like when banks write it down. He sighed. I'm trying, Rachel. I know, and I did know, but trying was not the same as standing beside me. When we arrived, Daniel's truck was already in the driveway. Vanessa's white Lexus was parked in front of the house, angled slightly too far from the curb like she had abandoned it there with confidence. Inside, Linda greeted us with a hug that lasted half a second too long. My sweet girl, she said, rubbing my back. How are you holding up? I stepped out of the hug. I'm fine. You must be so stressed. I am. Her eyes flicked toward the folder in my hand. Oh, she said softly. You brought paperwork. Yes. Her smile tightened, but she recovered quickly. Well, let's not start with all that. Dinner is almost ready. I looked past her into the dining room. Vanessa was already seated with a glass of red wine in her hand. This time she was wearing a deep green silk blouse, gold hoop earrings, and the same beige designer bag from last Sunday. It sat on the sideboard near Linda's framed family photos. Not hidden, displayed. Something about that made my skin go cold. Daniel stood near the window, hands in his pockets, looking like a man who wished he could be anywhere else. Ethan was not there. Linda had probably made sure the younger generation stayed away from whatever conversation she planned to control. Vanessa smiled when she saw me. Rachel, she said, you look tired. I smiled back. You look expensive. Mark froze beside me. Daniel looked down. Linda clapped her hands once too brightly. All right, everyone, let's sit down. Dinner was salmon, roasted potatoes, green beans, and tension. For the first 15 minutes, no one mentioned the credit card. Linda talked about church donations. Daniel talked about a customer who had brought in an old Ford Mustang. Mark tried to ask polite questions. Vanessa sipped wine and watched me over the rim of her glass. I ate slowly. I waited. I had learned a long time ago that people who want to manipulate a conversation usually reveal themselves if you let the silence stretch long enough. Vanessa broke first. So, she said, setting her glass down, I hear there's been some drama with your credit card. There it was. Not fraud. Not unauthorized charges. Drama. I placed my fork on my plate. Yes. Vanessa tilted her head. That must be scary. People can steal anything these days. They can. Online scams are everywhere, Linda added quickly. Just last month, Carol from book club had someone try to order a television with her card. I looked at Linda. Was Carol's card used in person at 3 luxury stores in Chicago? Linda blinked. The table went quiet. Vanessa's expression shifted for just a second. It was small, almost invisible, but I caught it. A tiny tightening near her mouth. Then she laughed softly. Well, Chicago is full of luxury stores. That doesn't exactly narrow it down. No, I said, but it's a start. Mark shifted beside me. Linda reached for her water glass. Rachel, she said carefully, I think we should all remember that mistakes happen. I turned to her. What kind of mistake? A misunderstanding? A mix-up? Maybe someone entered a number wrong? 3 times? Linda's face flushed. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Vanessa leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. I agree with Linda. Accusing someone without proof is dangerous. I looked at her. I haven't accused anyone. No, Vanessa said. You're just sitting here with a folder like a district attorney. Daniel finally spoke. Vanessa. She turned to him sharply. What, am I wrong? No one answered. That was the Bennett family at its most honest. No one wanted to defend her, but no one wanted to challenge her either. I opened the folder and took out the printed statement. I came here because the bank asked whether anyone close to me could have accessed my card information. I'm asking the family one question. Did anyone use my card by accident, borrow it, write down the information, or make a purchase they haven't told me about? Linda put a hand to her chest. Oh, Rachel. I kept going. If it was a mistake, this is the chance to say so. Vanessa laughed again, but this time it was sharper. A mistake? How exactly does someone accidentally buy a designer bag? I said nothing. The words hung there. Daniel turned his head toward her. Linda's eyes widened. Mark looked at Vanessa, then at me. For the first time that evening, Vanessa seemed to realize she had stepped too close to the truth. She lifted her glass again and took a sip, but her hand was not as steady as before. I'm speaking hypothetically, she said. Of course, I replied. Linda quickly stood. Who wants more potatoes? No one answered. I watched Vanessa. She watched me back. The room had changed. Everyone felt it, even if no one wanted to name it. After dinner, Linda asked me to help her in the kitchen. I almost said no. Then I decided I wanted to hear whatever speech she had prepared. The kitchen smelled like lemon dish soap and baked salmon. Linda turned on the faucet and began rinsing plates that were already clean enough for the dishwasher. She did not look at me at first. Rachel, she said quietly, I know you're upset. That's one word for it. I'm not dismissing what happened. You kind of are. She turned off the water. I'm trying to protect this family. I leaned against the counter. From what? From damage that can't be undone. I stared at her. Linda, someone used my credit card, and that was wrong. If it was Vanessa, Linda closed her eyes. Please. The softness in her voice almost fooled me. Almost. Please what? I asked. Please don't say her name like that. Like what? Like she's a criminal. I felt something inside me harden. What would you call a person who uses someone else's credit card without permission? Linda gripped the edge of the sink. We don't know that she did. No, we don't. Then why are you pushing this? Because someone did. She looked at me then, really looked at me. And for a second I saw the fear behind her family loyalty. It was not just fear of conflict, it was fear of exposure. Linda had built her life around the idea that her family was good, loud, imperfect, maybe messy, but good. If Vanessa had done this, it meant Linda's judgment had failed. It meant all the little excuses she had made over the years were not kindness. They were permission. That was a painful thing to face. So she handed the pain to me instead. "You're a smart woman," Linda said. "You and Mark are stable. You'll get the money back from the bank." I stared at her. "That's not the point. It's a lot of money, yes, but—" "No," I said. "Do not make this sound like I'm being dramatic over a refund." Linda's mouth tightened. "I didn't say dramatic. You didn't have to." She dried her hands on a towel. "I just think there are ways to handle family matters privately. Credit card fraud is not a family matter." Her face changed. "There's that word. Fraud, Rachel? What word should I use, Linda? Discomfort? Inconvenience? Vanessa's little shopping accident?" Linda flinched. For a moment I regretted the sharpness. Then I remembered Vanessa's bag sitting on the sideboard beside family photos. No, I did not regret it. Linda lowered her voice. "If you report this, you could ruin her life." I laughed quietly. It came out before I could stop it. Linda looked hurt. "What's funny?" "You're asking me to protect the life of someone who didn't care what happened to mine. That's not fair. Neither is stealing." Her eyes filled with tears, and there it was. The move I had expected. Not fake tears, exactly. Linda's pain was real, but real pain can still be used as pressure. "I have tried so hard to keep this family together," she whispered. I softened my voice, but not my words. "Then start holding the right people accountable." She looked away. Behind us, a floorboard creaked. I turned. Mark was standing in the doorway. I did not know how long he had been there. His face was pale. Linda immediately said, "Mark, honey, I'm just talking with Rachel." He did not look at his mother. He looked at me. "Are you okay?" That question should have been simple. But coming from him in that kitchen with his mother standing beside us, it felt like a small bridge appearing over deep water. "No," I said honestly. "I'm not." Mark nodded slowly. Then he looked at Linda. "Mom, Rachel has a right to ask questions." Linda's lips parted. "I never said she didn't." "You kind of did." The kitchen went silent. For Linda, that was betrayal. For me, it was the first breath I had taken all night. Before anyone could say more, Vanessa appeared behind Mark, holding her purse and wearing a wounded expression so perfect it could have been rehearsed. "Is this still about me?" she asked. I turned to face her. "No one said it was." She gave me a sad smile. "You don't have to. I can feel it." Mark stepped aside, uncomfortable. Vanessa looked from him to Linda, then back to me. "I have tried so hard to be nice to you, Rachel." I almost laughed again. "Have you?" Her eyes sharpened, but her voice stayed soft. "I know you don't like me." "That's true." Linda inhaled sharply. Vanessa placed a hand over her heart. "At least you admit it." "I don't like how you treat me," I said. "That's different." "No, you resent me. You resent my career, my clothes, my confidence, my life." Daniel appeared in the hallway behind her. "Vanessa, stop." But she was committed now. "You've always looked down on me because I like nice things," she continued. "And now, because someone stole your card, you're trying to make it my fault." I studied her face. The performance was impressive. Her eyes were glossy. Her voice trembled in just the right places. She looked like the victim of a jealous, bitter relative. But she had made one mistake. She was overacting before I had accused her. "Vanessa," I said calmly, "why do you think this is about you?" She froze, just for a second. Then she scoffed. "Because you're obvious." I asked everyone the same question. "No, you brought a folder to dinner and stared at my purse. Your purse is hard to miss." Her nostrils flared. Linda stepped forward. "Enough, both of you." But I was not done. I looked directly at Vanessa. "If you had nothing to do with it, then you have nothing to worry about." Her face changed again. There it was. Fear. Quick, but real. Then it vanished behind anger. "You should be careful," she said. Mark frowned. "Careful?" Vanessa kept her eyes on me. "Accusing someone without evidence can have consequences." I nodded. "So can using someone else's credit card." Daniel whispered, "Jesus." Linda looked like she might faint. Vanessa's lips parted, but no words came out. For one perfect second, the mask slipped completely. Then she grabbed her bag from the sideboard. "I'm not staying here to be insulted." She walked toward the front door, heels clicking hard against the floor. Daniel followed her. "Vanessa, wait." She spun on him. "No, I will not be treated like a thief by some jealous little accountant who thinks being cheap makes her morally superior." Mark's jaw tightened. "Don't talk about my wife like that." Everyone went still. Vanessa looked shocked. So did Linda. So did I. Mark's voice was not loud, but it was steady. "You can be angry," he said, "but you don't get to insult Rachel." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you have a spine." Daniel said her name again, talk quieter this time. She ignored him and looked at me. "You want to play detective? Fine. But don't come crying when you embarrass yourself." Then she opened the door and left. Daniel stood there for a moment, looking at the floor. "I'm sorry," he said. He did not say for what. Maybe for Vanessa. Maybe for himself. Maybe because some part of him already knew. Then he followed her out. The door closed behind them. No one moved. Linda pressed her fingers to her temples. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." I looked at her. "No, Linda. This is what happens when everyone is more afraid of confrontation than wrongdoing." She stared at me like I had slapped her. Maybe I had. Not with my hand. With the truth. On the drive home, Mark was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet, not avoidance. Thought. After 10 minutes, he said, "I'm sorry." I watched the city lights blur past the window. For what? For tonight? That's too vague. He gave a tired laugh, but there was no humor in it. For not understanding sooner. For telling my mom. For trying to make this smaller because I didn't want to deal with what it might mean. I turned to him. And what does it mean? He swallowed. It means Vanessa might have done it. I looked back out the window. Hearing him say it should have made me feel relieved. Instead, it made me sad. Because once suspicion becomes shared, it becomes heavier, Mark continued. And if she did, I don't know what my family is going to do. I answered without looking at him. I know what they're going to do. He glanced at me. What? They're going to ask me to be the bigger person. He did not argue. That night, I placed the folder on the kitchen table and added notes from the dinner. Vanessa's comments, Linda's reaction, Mark's statement, Daniel's apology. Then I opened Instagram again. Vanessa had posted a black background with white text. Some people confuse kindness for weakness. I know the truth, and so does God. I stared at the post. Then I checked the family group chat. Vanessa had written there too. I never thought I'd be made to feel unsafe in my own family. I hope everyone remembers that jealousy can be just as ugly as theft. My phone buzzed. A message from Linda. Please don't respond in the group chat tonight. Emotions are high. Let's all sleep on this. I read the message 3 times. Let's all sleep on this. As if this were a disagreement over dessert, as if my credit card had not been used, as if Vanessa had not threatened me in her mother-in-law's hallway. Mark came out of the bedroom. Everything okay? I handed him my phone. He read the messages and his face darkened. Rachel, I took the phone back. I'm not responding. Good, but I am saving screenshots. He nodded. This time, he did not tell me to calm down. This time, he did not say his mother meant well. This time, he stood beside me at the kitchen table while I captured every message. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from Linda and 1 voicemail. I played it on speaker while Mark stood beside me. Linda's voice filled the kitchen. Rachel, honey, I think things got out of hand last night. Vanessa feels attacked, and Daniel is very upset. I know you're hurt, but I'm asking you, as your mother-in-law, please don't take this outside the family. Let the bank handle it. You'll get your money back. There is no need to involve police or make formal accusations. We can sit down and work this out privately. The voicemail ended. I looked at Mark. His face had gone pale again, but this time he looked angry. She said police, I said. He nodded slowly. I heard. I never told her I was thinking about filing a police report. Mark's eyes lifted to mine. That silence was colder than anything Vanessa had said, because it meant Linda and Vanessa had been talking. And if Vanessa was scared of the police before I had even mentioned them, then maybe she knew exactly what evidence could prove. My phone buzzed again. A private message from Vanessa. You're making a huge mistake. If you drag my name into this, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I stared at the words. Then I took a screenshot. For the first time in days, I smiled. Not because I was happy, because Vanessa had just given me something useful. A threat. I placed my phone on the table, opened the folder, and slid the screenshot into a new section. Mark watched me. What are you doing? I wrote a label on a sticky note and pressed it onto the page. Harassment, intimidation. Then I looked at my husband. I'm done asking this family to be fair. He did not tell me I was overreacting. He did not ask me to wait. He only said, what do you need from me? I looked down at the folder. The answer came easily. I need you to stop protecting the idea of your family and start protecting the person you married. Mark nodded. I can do that. I wanted to believe him, but I also knew belief was not enough anymore. By Sunday night, Vanessa had posted twice more, both vague, both dramatic. Linda had sent 3 more messages asking everyone to cool down. Daniel had not contacted us again, and I had received an email from the bank confirming that the merchant might have a signed receipt and security footage available to law enforcement. There was that phrase again. Law enforcement. This time, it did not scare me. It clarified things. I sat at the kitchen table long after Mark had gone to bed, the apartment quiet around me, the fraud folder open under the yellow kitchen light. For years, I had thought kindness meant giving people room to do better. But what if some people used that room to take more? What if silence was not grace? What if silence was just a door left unlocked? I picked up my pen and wrote one final note at the bottom of the timeline. If Vanessa wants a private solution, she can confess privately. If she wants to threaten me publicly, I will protect myself officially. Then I closed the folder. I still did not know everything. I did not have the footage. I did not have the receipt. I did not have a confession. But I had enough to know one thing. The next move would not happen at Linda's dinner table. It would not happen in a family group chat. And it would not happen with me begging anyone to tell the truth. Because the truth, I was beginning to understand, did not need permission from a family that preferred silence. It only needed evidence. On Monday morning, I walked into work with 2 things in my bag. My lunch and the folder. The folder had started as a few printed bank statements and screenshots. Now it had sections, dates, labels, notes in blue ink, copies of messages, a timeline that was beginning to less like a question and more like a map. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Evidence has a strange weight to it. When you only suspect someone, there is still a thin, uncomfortable space where you can hope you are wrong. You can tell yourself maybe the timing was strange. Maybe the bag was a coincidence. Maybe Vanessa was just dramatic and insulting, not criminal. But every new piece of information made that space smaller, and I was starting to feel trapped inside the truth. At 8:15, I sat at my desk with a paper cup of coffee going cold beside my keyboard. The office around me was waking up in its usual way. Phones rang. Printers clicked. Someone down the hall complained about Monday before the day had even started. I opened my email and saw a message from the bank's fraud department. My stomach tightened before I clicked it. The email was polite and formal. It confirmed that my claim had been opened, that my card had been canceled, and that a provisional credit might be issued while the investigation continued. Near the bottom, there was a line I read 3 times. For in-person transactions, merchants may retain receipts, authorization records, customer loyalty information, and security footage. These records may be requested by law enforcement. Customer loyalty information. I sat back slowly. Loyalty information meant a rewards account, an email, a phone number, something entered at the register, something personal enough to make a stolen card purchase careless or arrogant. I copied the email into a PDF and saved it in a folder on my work computer with a neutral name, personal documents. Then I printed 1 copy and added it behind the bank statement. At 9:02, my phone buzzed. Vanessa. I stared at her name on the screen until it stopped ringing. She called again immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a text. You need to call me. I did not respond. Another text came seconds later. Rachel, I'm serious. Then another. You are taking this too far. I placed the phone face down on my desk. For 10 minutes I tried to work. I reviewed an expense report and caught myself reading the same line 4 times without understanding it. Finally, I picked up my phone and opened the messages. Vanessa had sent more. Do you understand what you're doing to this family? Linda is devastated. Daniel is barely speaking to me because of your little investigation. You better have proof. That last sentence was almost funny. You better have proof. As if she were not terrified that I might. I took screenshots of each message, sent them to my personal email, and printed them during my break. By then, my folder had a new section, contact attempts. At 10:30, Mark called. I answered from a quiet corner near the stairwell. Hey, he said. Did Vanessa text you? Yes. She texted me too. My hand tightened around the phone. What did she say? That you're unstable. I laughed under my breath. Of course. She said you've always hated her and now you're trying to ruin her reputation. That's convenient. Rachel, his voice sounded different, heavy. What? She also said you're threatening to call the police. I went still. I never said that to her. I know. No, I said slowly. Listen to me. I never said that to her. I never said it in the group chat. I never said it at dinner. The only people who heard that word were your mother's voicemail and the bank email. Mark was quiet. You think Mom told her? I think Vanessa already knew that was where this could go. He exhaled. I don't like this. Neither do I. No, I mean, I don't like what I'm starting to think. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I said, what are you starting to think? Mark lowered his voice. I think she did it. Hearing him say the words did not give me satisfaction. It made my chest ache. Because now it was not just my suspicion. It had entered our marriage, our conversations, our future family gatherings. It had become something real enough that Mark could no longer push it away. I'm sorry, I said. He gave a bitter little laugh. Why are you apologizing? I don't know. That was the truth. Maybe I was apologizing because part of me still felt responsible for bringing the ugliness into the light, even though I had not created it. Mark sighed. I talked to Daniel this morning. I straightened. What did he say? He sounded awful. He said Vanessa was crying all night, then yelling, then crying again. That sounds exhausting. She told him you're jealous of her job. I closed my eyes. Her job has nothing to do with my credit card. I know. Daniel asked me what proof you had. And I told him about the charges, the timing, the purse, the bank saying it was manual entry. What did he say? Mark paused. He asked how much the bag cost. My eyes opened. What did he asked if one of the charges was around $2,500. I stopped breathing for a second. What exactly did he say? He said, was one of the stores around $2,500? That's all. I leaned against the wall. Why would he ask that? I don't know, but he sounded like he already knew the answer. My mind began moving quickly. Daniel had seen the bag. Daniel had looked exhausted at dinner. Daniel had followed Vanessa out of Linda's house like a man who was tired of chasing storms. Maybe he knew more than he had said. Did he say where the bag came from? No, but he said Vanessa told him it was a client gift. I opened my eyes fully. A client gift? That's what he said. I almost laughed. Vanessa did not even bother with believable lies. She simply counted on everyone around her being too uncomfortable to challenge them. Mark, I said, designer real estate clients do not hand out luxury handbags like Halloween candy. I know. Does Daniel know? There was a pause. I think he's starting to. After the call ended, I returned to my desk, but my mind stayed with Daniel's question. Was one of the stores around $2,500? That was not curiosity. That was recognition. At lunch, I did something I had been avoiding. I called the boutique. The store was located on Michigan Avenue, in a part of the city where tourists looked up at buildings and wealthy people walked into stores without checking price tags. I found the number online and asked to speak with a manager. A woman named Claire answered. Her voice was polished and guarded. Thank you for calling. How may I assist you? My name is Rachel Bennett, I said. There was a purchase made at your store on my credit card yesterday. I did not authorize it. My bank has opened a fraud claim. Claire's tone changed immediately. I'm sorry to hear that. Have you already contacted your financial institution? Yes. And you're the card holder? Yes. She asked for the last 4 digits of the card, the date of the transaction, and the amount. I gave them to her. There was a long pause while she checked. Yes, she said finally. I do see a transaction matching that amount. My pulse quickened. Can you tell me what was purchased? I'm limited in what I can provide over the phone. I understand a police report. Law enforcement can request transaction details, receipt records, and available footage. There it was again, law enforcement. But then Claire hesitated. Miss Bennett, yes? I can confirm that the purchase was associated with a customer profile in our system. My grip tightened around the phone. A customer profile? Yes. Again, I can't release details over the phone, but that information may be included in records provided during an investigation. I swallowed. Can you tell me if the profile was under my name? Another pause. Claire chose her words carefully. The name on the customer profile does not match the name of the cardholder. For a moment, the office around me disappeared. There was only the phone, my breathing, and the sound of the truth stepping closer. Thank you, I said. Claire's voice softened. I would recommend filing a police report if you haven't already. When the call ended, I wrote down every word I could remember. Purchase associated with customer profile. Profile name does not match cardholder. Merchant can provide to law enforcement. Then I sat there staring at the notes, a customer profile. Vanessa had not just used my card, she had likely attached the purchase to her own rewards account. That was not desperation, that was entitlement. By 3, I had called the shoe store and the department store fragrance counter. Neither would give me much, but both confirmed that transaction records could be released to law enforcement with a report number. The department store representative slipped one detail before catching herself. The purchase appears to have been made under a loyalty account ending in... She stopped. I'm sorry, I can't provide that information. But she had already said enough. A loyalty account. Again, I wrote it down. By the time I left work, the folder felt heavier than when I had arrived. Mark was home when I got back. He was pacing in the living room, phone in hand. What happened? I asked. He looked up. Daniel called again. I placed my bag down slowly, and he asked if you could send him the amounts. I frowned. Why? He said he wanted to compare them with something. With what? Mark shook his head. He wouldn't say at first. Then he admitted he saw Vanessa's credit card statement last month. She's maxed out 2 cards. I sat down on the couch. How much? He doesn't know exactly. Maybe 20,000, maybe more. I let that number settle. $20,000. Vanessa's life was not elegant, it was financed. Mark sat beside me. He said she's been hiding bills. She told him some of the balances were business expenses, clothes she needed for work, things she would write off somehow. That's not how write-offs work. I know. Does Daniel know? He runs an auto shop. He knows enough to know something is wrong. I rubbed my forehead. The picture was getting clearer, but also bigger. A person who used another woman's credit card to buy a designer bag was bad enough. A person drowning in secret debt, lying to her husband and collecting personal information from relatives was something else. That evening, Daniel called again. This time, Mark put him on speaker. Daniel's voice sounded rough, like he had not slept. Rachel, he said, I'm sorry to bother you. You're not bothering me. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. At Linda's birthday party, did Vanessa have your purse? Mark looked at me. I looked at the folder on the coffee table. Yes, I said, for a few minutes. Daniel cursed softly under his breath. What is it? Mark asked. Daniel did not answer immediately. Then he said, she had my sister's wallet once too. A chill went through me. When? I asked. Last year, Thanksgiving. My sister left her purse in the kitchen. Vanessa said she moved it because the kids were running around. A week later, my sister had weird charges on one of her cards. She thought it was online fraud. I sat very still. Did she report it? To the bank, not police. She got the money back. Were the charges for luxury items? Daniel was quiet. I don't remember all of them, but one was at a department store. Mark whispered. Daniel. I didn't connect it, Daniel said quickly. I swear I didn't. At the time, why would I? Vanessa said my sister was careless with online shopping. She made it sound like my sister probably got hacked because she buys from sketchy websites. I looked at Mark. Vanessa had a pattern. A small one, maybe. But a pattern. Daniel continued, his voice breaking slightly. I feel stupid. You're not stupid, I said. I'm her husband. That doesn't make you responsible for her choices. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, she has a drawer. I straightened. What drawer? In her office at home. Locked. I found the key in her jewelry box. Mark sat forward. Daniel, don't do anything that's going to make things worse. I already opened it. I held my breath. What was inside? I asked. Bills, credit card statements, a personal loan agreement I didn't know about. He paused. And copies. Copies of what? Driver's licenses, insurance cards, some old tax documents from family stuff. I don't know why she has them. My skin went cold. Whose documents? Mine, my sister's, Linda's, maybe Mark's old address information. I didn't look through everything. Mark stood up. What? Daniel's voice cracked. I don't know what she was doing. I don't know if it's connected. But Rachel, if she used your card, I don't think it was the first time she crossed a line. For a moment, no one spoke. The apartment felt too small around us. Finally, I said, Daniel, take photos of what you found. Don't destroy anything. Don't confront her alone if you think she'll lie or escalate. He let out a breath. I already confronted her. My stomach dropped. What happened? She said I violated her privacy. She screamed that I was taking your side. Then she left. Where did she go? I don't know. Maybe her office. Maybe her friend's place. Mark closed his eyes. Daniel added quietly, she took the beige bag. Of course she did. After the call, Mark and I stood in the living room in silence. Then Mark said, this is bigger than the card. Yes. I need to check my credit. Yes. He looked at me, guilt all over his face. I'm sorry I didn't take you seriously at first. I wanted to say it was okay, but it wasn't, so I said I know you are. He nodded. That was enough for the moment. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table again. Mark had gone to check his credit reports, muttering under his breath as he created accounts and searched for old passwords. I opened the folder and added a new section, possible pattern. I wrote down what Daniel had told us, his sister's suspicious charges, Vanessa holding wallets, hidden statements, copied documents. I was careful with the wording. I did not write conclusions as facts. I wrote what was said, who said it, and when. That was something I had learned from work. Facts mattered. Order mattered. Emotion might explain why you cared, but documentation proved why others should. At 9:47, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Hello? For a second there was only breathing. Then Vanessa's voice came through, low and tight. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I stood up slowly. Vanessa, you must feel so powerful with your little folder. I looked toward the living room. Mark was at his laptop, focused on the screen. How did you get this number? I asked. She laughed. Please, your number is not a national secret. I'm going to hang up. No, you're going to listen. Her voice sharpened. You have no idea what you're doing. You think because you work with spreadsheets you understand people? You don't. You're cold. You're smug. You've been waiting for a reason to make me look bad. I don't need to make you look bad. She went quiet. Then she said, What does that mean? It means if you didn't use my card, records will show that. And if records don't show what you want, then I'll accept that. You're lying. I said nothing. She hated silence. I could feel it through the phone. You know, she said, softer now, this could still go away. My heart began beating harder. How? She exhaled. I could give you the money. I closed my eyes. There it was. Not I didn't do it. Not how dare you accuse me. I could give you the money. How much money? I asked. The amount you're whining about. I opened my eyes. Do you mean $385? She was silent. I reached for a pen and wrote the time at the top of blank page. 9:49 p.m. Call from unknown number. Vanessa offered to give money. You know the amount, I said. Everyone knows the amount. You've been waving it around like a victim badge. I haven't shown you the statement. Another silence. This one lasted longer. Then Vanessa laughed, but it was thin. Linda told me. Linda didn't know the exact amount. She stopped laughing. I heard a car pass outside the apartment window. Somewhere above us, a neighbor's dog barked once. Vanessa, I said quietly, did you use my credit card? She exploded. How dare you? That's not an answer. You think you can trap me? Is that what this is? No, I'm asking you a question. I told you I can pay you. Why would you pay me if you didn't use it? Because I want this nightmare to end. My hand was steady as I wrote. Offered payment again. Refused direct answer. I saw Mark enter the kitchen from the corner of my eye. His face changed when he realized who I was speaking to. I put the phone on speaker. Vanessa was still talking. You have no idea how hard I work. You sit in your boring little office judging people like me, but you don't know the pressure. You don't know what it takes to stay visible in my industry. I looked at Mark. He looked horrified. Vanessa continued. You think clients respect average? They don't. They want success. They want confidence. They want someone who looks like she belongs in million-dollar rooms. Did my credit card help you look like you belonged? I asked. Mark's eyes widened. Vanessa inhaled sharply. You hateful little, did it? Fine, she snapped. You want to hear it? I borrowed it. The word landed in the kitchen like a glass breaking. Borrowed. Mark gripped the back of a chair. I kept my voice calm. You borrowed my credit card information without asking me. I was going to pay it back. When? When I closed my next deal. Vanessa, you didn't tell me. Because you would have said no. I almost laughed. Yes, I would have said no. Exactly. That's why I didn't ask. For a moment, I could not speak. Not because I was surprised, because the entitlement was so complete it was almost breathtaking. She had not just admitted what she did. She had explained it like I was the unreasonable one. Mark stepped closer to the phone. Vanessa, he said, voice low. She went quiet. Is Mark there? She asked. Yes, I said. You put me on speaker? You called me from an unknown number and admitted to using my credit card. I said borrowed. Mark's voice hardened. You stole from my wife. Don't you dare talk to me like that, Vanessa snapped. You were always weak, Mark. Always hiding behind Rachel's little rules. He flinched, but he did not back down. You need to tell Daniel the truth. I don't need to tell Daniel anything. He already found the drawer. The line went silent, completely silent. Then Vanessa whispered, What drawer? Mark looked at me. I shook my head slightly. Too late. Vanessa's voice changed. What did he touch? I said, That sounds like a question for your husband. You people have no right. No right to what? I asked. Our own financial information. She breathed hard into the phone. You don't understand. None of you understand. Then explain it. I don't owe you anything. You owe me $3,485. I offered to pay it, and I'm declining your private payment. That stopped her. What? I'm not taking money from you privately. You've got to be kidding me. No, you'd rather destroy me? I'd rather document what happened. You evil jealous, I ended the call. For a few seconds, the kitchen was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Then Mark whispered, She admitted it. I looked down at the page where I had written every important line as fast as I could. Borrowed it. Going to pay it back. You would have said no. Offered private payment. I felt no victory. Only a cold, heavy sadness. Yes, I said. She admitted it. Mark sat down slowly. Did you record it? I shook my head. In Illinois, recording laws are complicated. I didn't want to do anything that could hurt the case. So it's just notes? For now. He looked at the phone like it might ring again. She knew about the drawer. Yes. What the hell is in that drawer? I think we're going to find out. The next morning, I called the bank again and updated the fraud representative. I told her the person I suspected had contacted me, offered repayment, and referred to the charges as something she had borrowed. The representative carefully noted the information and again recommended that I file a police report if I believed the card information had been used by a known person. By then, the recommendations sounded less like advice and more like the only path left. At 11:20 a.m., I received an email from the boutique manager, Claire. It was brief. Ms. Bennett, as the verified cardholder, we can confirm that the transaction associated with your disputed charge was connected to a customer rewards profile. Further details, including profile information and available security footage, may be released upon official request from law enforcement. I printed it immediately. Then 5 minutes later, another email came through. This one was from the department store's customer service department. Attached was a duplicate receipt for the fragrance purchase. I opened it. My eyes moved line by line, date, time, amount, payment type, last 4 digits of my canceled card. Then near the bottom, loyalty member email. I stopped breathing. There it was. Not a suspicion, not a theory, not a family misunderstanding. Her work email, her name, her account, my card. I sat frozen at my desk while people moved around me, unaware that my whole world had just narrowed to one line on a receipt. For a moment, I thought I might cry. Not because I was shocked anymore, because some part of me had still been waiting for a reason to be wrong. I had wanted the truth, but I had also wanted an escape from it. There was no escape now. I saved the receipt, printed 3 copies, one for the folder, one for home, one for whatever came next. Then I called Mark. He answered on the first ring. Hey, I got the receipt. His voice dropped. And? It has her work email on it. Silence. Then a long, slow exhale. Vanessa? Yes. You're sure? I'm looking at it. Send it to me. I will. Another pause. Then he said, Rachel? Yes. I'm with you. Those 3 words nearly broke me. Not because they fixed everything. Because I realized how long I had been waiting to hear them. After work, I came home and found Mark sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a notebook beside him. He had checked his credit reports. Nothing new had been opened in his name, but he had placed alerts anyway. I called Daniel, he said, and he wants to come over. When? Tonight. I looked at the folder. Okay. Daniel arrived at 7:30. He looked 10 years older than he had the week before. His jacket was wrinkled. His eyes were red. He held a manila envelope in both hands. Mark let him in. Daniel stood awkwardly in the living room, looking at me like he did not know whether he had the right to sit down. Rachel, he said, I am so sorry. I gestured to the couch. Sit. He sat. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Daniel placed the envelope on the coffee table. I took photos of the drawer, he said, and I brought copies of what I could. Mark sat beside me. Daniel opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were credit card statements, loan papers, store financing documents, a printed spreadsheet that looked like Vanessa had been tracking payments and due dates, and copies of IDs. Not dozens, but enough. A copy of Daniel's driver's license. An old copy of Linda's Medicare card partially visible. A utility bill with Mark's old address. A photocopy of a tax form from Daniel's sister. And near the bottom, a folded sheet of paper with handwritten notes. Names, birth dates, addresses, phone numbers. I found my name on the 3rd line. Rachel Bennett, my birthday, my old apartment zip code, my current phone number. I stared at it until the letters blurred. Mark leaned over and saw it. His face went white. Daniel whispered, I didn't know. I believed him. That was the worst part. Daniel was not covering for her anymore. He looked destroyed. I don't know what she was using it for, he said. Maybe just store accounts, maybe credit applications, maybe nothing yet. I don't know. Mark picked up the paper, then set it down like it burned. This is insane. Daniel nodded. She came home this afternoon. We fought. She said everyone keeps forcing her to live beneath her potential. She said she was tired of being married to a mechanic while working with people who own lakefront condos. His voice cracked. I built that shop with my father. I felt a wave of anger on his behalf. Vanessa had not just stolen money. She had stolen dignity from everyone around her and called it ambition. Daniel rubbed his hands over his face. She said Rachel could afford it. I looked at him. She said that? He nodded. She said you and Mark were boring but financially comfortable and that you'd get reimbursed anyway. Mark stood up and walked toward the kitchen, then turned back. She thought that made it okay? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I don't think she thought about okay. I think she thought about getting caught. That sentence stayed in the room, because it was true. Some people do not have morals, they have risk calculations. Daniel looked at me. What are you going to do? I looked at the receipt with Vanessa's email, then at the copied sheet with my personal information, then at Mark. For the first time, I did not feel alone in the decision. I'm filing a police report, I said. Daniel closed his eyes. Mark sat back down beside me. Daniel nodded slowly. I understand. He did not ask me not to. He did not say the family would be ruined. He did not tell me to be the bigger person. He only looked at the papers on the table and whispered, I think you have to. Later that night, after Daniel left, Mark and I cleaned the coffee table in silence. Not because it was dirty, but because we needed something ordinary to do after seeing something so ugly. When we were done, I placed everything back into the folder. The folder no longer fit neatly. The papers stuck out slightly at the edges. Mark watched me struggle with the clasp. You need a bigger folder. he said. I looked at him. Then, unexpectedly, we both laughed. Not because anything was funny, because sometimes the human body mistakes exhaustion for humor. The laughter faded quickly. Mark reached across the table and touched my hand. I'm sorry, he said again. This time I asked, for what? For asking you to wait, for wanting it to be anything else, for making you carry this carefully so nobody else had to feel uncomfortable. I looked down at his hand over mine. I understand why you did it. That doesn't make it right. No, I said. It doesn't. He nodded. Then he said, tomorrow we'll go together. To the police station? Yes. I looked toward the folder. For days I had imagined that moment as a dramatic line crossed in anger, but now that it was here, it felt quiet, almost solemn, like closing a door that should have been locked long ago. Before bed, I checked my phone one more time. There was a new message from Vanessa. I know Daniel came to your apartment. You have no idea what you're unleashing. My career, my marriage, my whole life could be destroyed because you can't let go of a stupid handbag. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed one reply. Vanessa, do not contact me again. Any further communication should go through the appropriate legal channels. I sent it. A minute passed, then 2. No response. I took a screenshot anyway. Then I added it to the folder. At the bottom of the newest page in my timeline, I wrote, receipt confirms Vanessa's work email connected to disputed purchase. Suspect admitted to borrowing card information during phone call. Personal information found in Vanessa's locked drawer. Private repayment offered and declined. Police report next. I set down the pen. Outside, Chicago moved on like nothing had happened. Cars passed below our window. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. A siren sounded faintly in the distance, then faded. I thought about Vanessa sitting somewhere with her beige designer bag, still convinced the worst thing happening was that she might lose the image she had built. But that was not the worst thing. The worst thing was not exposure. The worst thing was becoming the kind of person who could betray people close to you and still believe you were the victim. I turned off the kitchen light. In the dark, I felt strangely calm, not happy, not healed, but clear. For the first time since I saw those charges, I knew exactly what the next step was. I was done asking my husband's family to believe me. I had the receipt, I had the messages, I had the notes, I had the names, and tomorrow I would have a police report. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. For a few seconds, I did not move. The room was dim. The city outside our window was still gray and quiet, that early morning silence before traffic began grinding through the streets. Mark was asleep beside me, one arm over the blanket, his face turned toward me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what we were about to do. Police report. Those 2 words had sounded dramatic when Linda said them in her voicemail. Like a threat, like something cruel and unnecessary. But now, after the receipt, the messages, the phone call, and Daniel's envelope, the words felt different. They felt like a door. One I could either open or spend the rest of my life standing in front of, pretending I did not know what was behind it. I slipped out of bed quietly and went to the kitchen. The folder was on the table where I had left it the night before. It looked thicker in the morning light, messier too. Papers were clipped together by category, sticky notes poked out from the edges, and the front pocket held a handwritten timeline that had become the spine of the whole thing. I made coffee, but I barely drank it. At 6:45, Mark walked into the kitchen wearing sweatpants and an old Northwestern hoodie. His hair was messy, his eyes tired. You slept? He asked. A little. He looked at the folder. You still want to go today? I looked at him. Yes, he nodded immediately. Okay. That one word mattered. Not because I needed permission. I didn't. But because there was a difference between walking into something alone and walking in with someone who had finally stopped asking you to make yourself smaller. Mark made toast. Neither of us ate much. By 8:15 we were dressed. I wore black slacks, a white blouse, and a gray blazer. Not because I wanted to look intimidating, because I wanted to feel steady. Mark wore a dark jacket and kept checking his phone. Daniel texted, he said. What did he say? He said Vanessa didn't come home last night. I paused near the door. Do you know where she is? He thinks she stayed with a coworker, or maybe at a hotel. Did he tell her we're filing the report? No. Good. Mark hesitated. He also said she called him at 2 a.m. and demanded to know what he gave us. I closed my eyes for a moment. She's not scared because she's innocent. I know. He put his phone away. Let's go. The police station was not dramatic. That surprised me. Some part of me had imagined bright lights, raised voices, an immediate shift in the air as soon as I said the words credit card fraud. Instead, it was ordinary. A woman at the front desk directed us to wait. A man in a work uniform sat 2 chairs away, filling out a form. Someone argued quietly near the entrance about a parking issue. A vending machine hummed in the corner. Real life, I realized, does not always recognize your turning points. Sometimes the most important moments of your life happen under fluorescent lights while someone nearby buys a bag of chips. When an officer finally called my name, Mark stood with me. The officer was a woman in her 40s with calm eyes and a voice that made me feel like she had heard every version of family disaster before. I'm Officer Ramirez, she said. You're here to report unauthorized credit card use? Yes, I said. She gestured for us to sit. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her about the charges, the boutique, the shoe store, the fragrance counter. I explained that my card had been in my possession, that the bank confirmed the purchases were in person, and that the card details had been manually entered after the chip failed. Officer Ramirez typed as I spoke. When I mentioned Vanessa holding my purse at Linda's birthday party, she looked up. How long did she have access to it? A few minutes. Was the wallet inside? Yes. Did it contain the card used in the disputed transactions? Yes. She nodded and kept typing. I gave her the printed statement, the bank emails, the screenshots, the receipt with Vanessa's work email printed at the bottom. That was the moment her expression changed. Not dramatically, not like in a movie, but enough. She picked up the receipt and read the line. Loyalty member email, she said. Yes. And this email belongs to the person you suspect? Yes. Vanessa Harper. She works at Crown and Lake Realty. Officer Ramirez looked at me. And she contacted you afterward? I handed over the screenshots. She texted from her number first, then called from an unknown number. I didn't record the call, but I wrote notes during and immediately after. Good, she said. Contemporaneous notes can still be useful. Mark glanced at me. I could see the relief on his face. For days I had worried my notes might look obsessive. Here they look practical. Officer Ramirez read through the messages. When she reached Vanessa's warning, "You have no idea what you're unleashing," her mouth tightened slightly. She was told not to contact you after this? Yes, I sent a message telling her not to contact me again and that further communication should go through appropriate legal channels. Has she contacted you since? Not yet, Officer Ramirez nodded. Then I told her about Daniel, the hidden drawer, the copied documents, the old tax forms, the handwritten list with my personal information. I was careful to explain that I had not personally taken the materials from Vanessa's home. Daniel had brought copies voluntarily. Officer Ramirez wrote Daniel's name down. We may need to speak with him. I understand. She leaned back slightly. Miss Bennett, based on what you've provided, we can open a report. The merchants may be contacted for additional records and video footage. Depending on what those show, this may move forward as a fraud investigation. I swallowed. Okay, she studied me. I also want to be clear, because this involves a family connection. People may try to pressure you to withdraw, minimize, or work it out privately. But once a report exists, the facts matter more than family opinions. For a second, I could not speak. Then I said, that's exactly why I'm here. Officer Ramirez gave a small nod. She printed a document and handed it to me. The police report number. It looked so simple on paper. A few letters, a string of numbers, a date. But holding it, I felt something inside me shift. For days, Vanessa had tried to keep the situation emotional. She wanted jealousy, drama, insecurity, family loyalty, personal attacks. This paper changed the language. Now it was official. After we left the station, Mark and I stood on the sidewalk outside. A cold wind moved between the buildings. I folded the report number into the folder and zipped it inside my bag. Mark looked at me. How do you feel? I thought about it. I don't know. That's fair. We walked toward the car. Then my phone rang. Linda, I stopped. Mark saw the name inside. You don't have to answer. I know. But I did. Not because I wanted to. Because I was done letting everyone speak about me while I stayed silent. Hello, Linda. Her voice was already strained. Rachel, where are you? I looked at Mark. Why? Vanessa called me. She said Daniel told her you and Mark left early with that folder. I closed my eyes, of course. Vanessa had eyes everywhere because people kept feeding her information, either out of fear or habit. Linda, I said, I'm not discussing this with you. Please, just tell me you didn't go to the police. I did not answer. Her breath caught. Oh my God. Linda, Rachel, how could you? The question was so familiar, so perfectly backwards that I almost smiled. How could I? Not how could Vanessa. Not how could someone use your card, threaten you, lie to the family, and store your personal information. How could I respond? Because a crime was committed. I said, you don't know that. I filed a report based on evidence. You could have let us handle it. No, Linda. You had several chances to handle it. You used every one of them to ask me to stay quiet. There was a pause. Then her voice dropped. She could lose her job. I looked across the street at people walking past with coffee cups and laptop bags, living normal Tuesday mornings. She should have thought about that before using her work email on a purchase made with my card. Linda gasped softly. She did what? I went still. That was when I realized something. Linda did not know, at least not that part. Vanessa had told her enough to make me look cruel, but not enough to reveal the receipt. The receipt has her Crown and Lake Realty email attached to the purchase, I said. Silence. For the first time since this began, Linda had no immediate defense. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. Maybe there's an explanation. There probably is, I said, but I'm done accepting explanations that require me to ignore facts. Linda's voice trembled. Please don't go to her workplace. I looked at Mark. I had not told Linda anything about going to Vanessa's workplace. Neither had Mark. Why would you say that? I asked. What? Why would you tell me not to go to her workplace? Linda stumbled over her words. I know you said her work email was involved. No, Linda, you sounded like you already knew this could affect her office. Another pause. Then Linda whispered, she's there. My grip tightened on the phone. At work? Yes, she called me from her office. She said if the police contacted Crown and Lake, she would be finished. There it was, the center of Vanessa's fear. Not remorse, not guilt, not concern for the people she had hurt. Her office, her image, her polished glass kingdom where everyone saw her as successful. I looked at Mark. He mouthed, what? I covered the phone and whispered, she's at the office. Mark's expression hardened. Linda was still talking. Rachel, please, don't embarrass her there. Whatever happened, we can still... I ended the call. Mark stared at me. What are you thinking? I looked toward the car, then down at the folder in my bag. I'm thinking Vanessa is going to spend the whole day warning people before the police contact the company. You want to go there? I want to make sure her employer knows my report involves her work email and possibly company-related contact information before she turns this into a personal family vendetta. Mark hesitated. That hesitation lasted only 2 seconds. Then he nodded. I'll drive. Crown and Lake Realty occupied the 23rd floor of a glass building near the river. The lobby smelled like polished stone and expensive coffee. Everyone who walked through it looked busy, confident, and better dressed than necessary. Vanessa belonged in a place like that. Or rather, she had built herself to belong there. As we stepped into the elevator, I saw my reflection in the mirrored wall. Calm face, folder in hand, shoulders straight. Inside, my heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Mark stood beside me. You don't have to say much, he said. I know. No yelling. I'm not here to yell. I know. I'm saying it because I need to hear it too. The elevator doors opened onto the 23rd floor. Crown and Lake Realty's reception area looked like a magazine spread. White marble desk, dark wood walls, framed photos of luxury condos, a city view stretching behind floor-to-ceiling windows. A receptionist in a navy blazer looked up with a professional smile. Good morning. Welcome to Crown and Lake Realty. Do you have an appointment? I stepped forward. My name is Rachel Bennett. I need to speak with a manager regarding a police report involving one of your employees, Vanessa Harper. The receptionist's smile faltered. Mark stood quietly at my side. I'm sorry, she said. Did you say police report? Yes. Her eyes moved to the folder in my hand. May I ask what this is regarding? Unauthorized use of my credit card. One of the disputed purchases was attached to Ms. Harper's company email address. The receptionist's posture changed immediately. Please have a seat. She picked up the phone and lowered her voice. Mark and I sat in 2 gray chairs near a glass wall. Behind it, I could see a conference room where 2 agents were laughing over coffee. Beyond that, desks, computer screens, plants, and a large wall display showing listings with prices that made my mortgage savings look tiny. 2 minutes later, Vanessa appeared. She came around the corner fast, heels sharp against the floor, hair perfectly styled, wearing a fitted black dress and a cream blazer, and on her arm was the beige designer bag. For a second, neither of us spoke. Her eyes went first to me, then Mark, then the folder, then the receptionist. Her smile appeared, but it was brittle. Rachel, she said. Mark, what a surprise. The receptionist looked between us. Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice. What are you doing here? I stood. I filed a police report. Her face changed. Not enough for the receptionist to notice, maybe. But I noticed. Mark noticed. Vanessa took another step closer. You need to leave. I'm here to speak with your manager. No, you're here to humiliate me. I'm here because your work email is on a receipt connected to a disputed purchase made with my credit card. The receptionist's eyes widened. Vanessa turned her head sharply. Emily, could you give us a minute? The receptionist did not move. A man in a charcoal suit appeared from the hallway. Vanessa? She turned toward him, instantly changing her face. Professional. Wounded. Controlled. Greg, I'm so sorry. This is a private family matter. Greg looked at me. He was in his 50s, tall, with silver hair and the kind of calm expression managers use when they are deciding how bad something is. I'm Gregory Sloan, he said, managing partner. What seems to be the issue? Vanessa spoke before I could. My husband's cousin's wife has been dealing with a credit card issue, and unfortunately, she's confused and upset. She came here without an appointment. Greg looked at me again. Miss Bennett, Rachel Bennett. I held out the police report copy. I filed this report this morning. One of the disputed transactions was tied to a loyalty account using Miss Harper's Crown and Lake Realty email address. Greg did not take the paper immediately. He looked at Vanessa. Vanessa laughed softly. That is ridiculous. I said nothing. Greg took the paper. He read the top section, then he looked back at me. Do you have the receipt? Yes. I opened the folder and handed him a copy with the relevant line highlighted. Loyalty member email. Greg's face went still. Vanessa saw his expression and moved quickly. That doesn't mean anything, she said. Stores mix up loyalty accounts all the time. I looked at her. Then it should be easy to clear up. She turned on me, voice still low but shaking. You are insane. Mark stepped forward. Don't. Greg's eyes moved to Mark. And you are? Mark Bennett, Rachel's husband. Vanessa let out a sharp laugh. Of course you're enjoying this too. You always let her lead you around. Greg's expression tightened. Vanessa! She stopped. People were beginning to notice. A woman at a nearby desk had gone quiet. Another agent standing by the copier looked over. The receptionist pretended to type while clearly listening to every word. Vanessa noticed them noticing. That was when her panic sharpened. Can we not do this here? She hissed. I looked around the office. The glass walls, the city view, the polished floors, the luxury photos, the perfect stage she had built her life on. Then I looked back at her. You didn't mind using this email when you made the purchase. Her mouth fell open. Greg turned to Vanessa. Did you use Miss Bennett's credit card? No, she said immediately. Too fast. Greg's eyes narrowed. Then why is your company email on the receipt? I don't know. Maybe Rachel put it there. I almost laughed. Mark did. One quiet, disbelieving laugh. Vanessa spun toward him. What? Mark shook his head. You're really going to say Rachel used your work email to frame you for buying her own stolen perfume? It could happen. The office went silent, even to hear how absurd it sounded once the words were in the air. Greg folded the receipt and police report together. Vanessa, my office. Now. No, she said quickly. Greg, you need to understand. This woman has been jealous of me for years. She came to my family's dinner with a folder. She's obsessed. I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm. Vanessa, I didn't come here to argue with you. Then why are you here? To make sure the official report reaches the right people. You want me fired. I want accountability. You want revenge. I wanted my credit card not to be used. Her face twisted. It was one bag. The words came out louder than she intended. Everything stopped. The receptionist froze. The woman at the copier turned fully around. Greg looked at Vanessa as if she had just spoken in another language. Mark went very still beside me. I felt the air leave the room. Vanessa realized it too late. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I did not move. I did not smile. I did not say gotcha. I simply let her words hang there where everyone could see them. It was one bag. Not I didn't do it. Not this is a mistake. One bag. Greg's voice changed. Vanessa. She shook her head quickly. No, I mean hypothetically. I mean even if it was, this is being blown out of proportion. I looked at her. You used my card at 3 stores, she snapped. And you'll get reimbursed. There it was again. The real logic. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. You'll get reimbursed. As if bank protection turned theft into a temporary inconvenience. As if my peace, my time, my credit, my safety, and my personal information were all replaceable because an institution might put money back in my account. Greg looked at the receptionist. Emily, call building security. Vanessa's face went white. What? Greg kept his voice measured. You need to wait in my office while I contact HR and legal. Legal? Vanessa whispered. Yes. She looked at me. You did this. I shook my head. No, you did. Her breathing became shallow. Then she stepped closer, and for a second I thought she might grab the folder from my hand. Mark moved between us. Back up, he said. Vanessa stared at him with pure hatred. You pathetic man. Greg's voice sharpened. Vanessa, enough. 2 security officers appeared near the reception desk, not police, just building security. But their presence changed the room completely. Vanessa looked around, at her manager, at Emily, at the agents pretending not to watch. At the glass office where she had spent years performing success. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time the tears did not soften anyone because everyone had heard her. It was one bag. And what about Daniel, she said suddenly, turning back to me. Did he send you here? Is that what this is? My own husband helping you destroy me? Daniel didn't make the purchase, I said. You don't know what he's like. Mark said, don't try to drag Daniel into this. Vanessa laughed, but it broke halfway through. You all think you're so much better than me. No, I said, we just didn't steal from you. That landed harder than I expected. Her face crumpled for a second, then anger replaced it. You have no idea what it's like, she said, to walk into rooms where everyone is richer than you, to have clients look at your shoes before they listen to your pitch, to know that one wrong outfit can make you invisible. I stared at her, and for the first time, I saw the truth beneath the performance. Vanessa was not confident. She was terrified. Terrified of being ordinary. Terrified of being overlooked. Terrified that without the bag, the heels, the jewelry, the polished lies, there might be nothing there. But fear does not give someone the right to turn another person into a credit line. I said quietly, then you should have bought cheaper shoes. A sound moved through the office. Not quite laughter. More like a collective intake of breath. Vanessa looked like I had slapped her. Greg stepped between us. Ms. Bennett, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Please leave your contact information with Emily. We will cooperate with any official requests we receive. I nodded. That's all I wanted. Vanessa let out a sharp sound. That's a lie. I looked at her one last time. No, the lie is that you borrowed from me. She flinched. I didn't borrow from you. You took from me, and then you expected me to be polite enough to call it something else. For once, Vanessa had nothing to say. Mark placed a hand lightly on my back. We're done here, he said. As we walked toward the elevator, I felt every eye in the reception area on us. I did not look back until the doors opened. When I did, I saw Vanessa standing near Greg's office, security beside her, the beige designer bag still hanging from her arm. It looked different now. Not elegant, not powerful, not like a symbol of success, just evidence. The elevator doors closed. For the first time all morning, I let myself breathe. Mark leaned against the wall beside me. That was awful, I asked. Yeah, I nodded. It was, he looked at me. But you didn't lose control. No, she did. I stared at my reflection in the elevator doors. Yes, outside the building, the wind had picked up. I hugged my coat around myself while Mark opened the car door. Before I got in, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Did you file the report? I typed back, yes. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, his message came through. Thank you for telling the truth when the rest of us were too scared to look at it. I read it twice. Then I locked my phone. Mark looked at me from the driver's seat. Daniel? Yes. What did he say? I handed him the phone. He read it and closed his eyes for a second. When he gave it back, his voice was quiet. He knew. He suspected. That's almost worse. I looked out at the building. 23 floors of glass and money. Somewhere up there, Vanessa's perfect image was collapsing in real time. I expected to feel powerful. I didn't. I expected to feel satisfied. I didn't feel that either. What I felt was something colder and steadier. A boundary. Finally visible. Finally enforced. Mark started the car. Before we pulled away, my phone rang again. Linda. I let it ring. Then came a text. What have you done? I stared at the words. For years, that question would have sent me into defense mode. I would have explained, softened, apologized for tone, reassured everyone that I did not mean to hurt anyone. This time, I typed only one sentence. I reported what Vanessa did. I sent it, then I turned off notifications. On the drive home, neither of us spoke for a while. The city moved around us, indifferent and loud. Buses hissed at curbs, pedestrians hurried through crosswalks. Somewhere, someone's whole day was beginning. Somewhere else, someone's carefully built lie had just started falling apart. Mark finally said, "My mom is going to be furious." "I know. My aunt too. Probably half the family." "I know. Vanessa is going to say you ruined her life." I looked at him. "No, Mark. Vanessa ruined her life and tried to charge it to my card." He glanced at me. Then, despite everything, he laughed. A real laugh this time. Small, exhausted, but real. I smiled faintly, but the smile did not last. Because I knew this was not over. People like Vanessa did not collapse quietly. They reached for whatever they could pull down with them. By the time we got back to the apartment, I had 6 missed calls from Linda, 2 from an unknown number, 1 from Daniel, and a flood of family group chat messages. Linda wrote, "Everyone needs to calm down. We are still a family." Aunt Susan wrote, "Rachel, I hope you understand the consequences of making this public." One of Mark's cousins wrote, "I don't know what happened, but calling police on family is extreme." Then Vanessa finally posted, not in the group chat, on Facebook, a black and white photo of herself looking out a window. The caption read, "Sometimes the people closest to your family will try to destroy you because they can't stand seeing you shine. I will not be broken by jealousy, lies, or cruelty." I stared at the post. Then I laughed. Not loudly, not happily, just enough. Because in that moment I realized Vanessa still believed the story was about image. She thought if she found the right words, the right tears, the right angle, people would forget the receipt. But receipts do not care about captions. Police reports do not care about Facebook posts. And evidence does not get jealous. Mark stood behind me and looked over my shoulder. "Are you going to respond?" "No." "You sure?" "Yes." I took a screenshot. Then I added it to the folder. Public statement after report. Possible defamation angle if accusations escalate. Mark watched me label the page. "You really do think in spreadsheets," he said softly. I looked up at him. "Spreadsheets don't lie." He smiled sadly. "No, they don't." That evening, Officer Ramirez called. She said she had received the report, and the case would be assigned for follow-up. She asked for Daniel's contact information. I provided it. She also asked whether I had concerns about Vanessa contacting or threatening me further. I looked at the phone, then at Mark. "Yes," I said, "I do." Officer Ramirez told me to save every message, avoid direct confrontation, and call if Vanessa showed up at our home or workplace. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen with the phone in my hand. The official world was now moving. Slowly, maybe, but moving. And that meant the family could no longer control the narrative completely. That night, I received one final text from Vanessa. "You walked into my office like you owned the truth. Enjoy it while you can. When I'm done, everyone will know you planned this from the beginning." I read it once. Then I showed it to Mark. His face hardened. "Send it to Officer Ramirez." "I will." I forwarded the message to the contact email she had provided. Then I added the screenshot to the folder. By then, I was no longer afraid of looking obsessive. I was building a record. A record Vanessa could not charm, cry, or caption her way out of. When I finally got into bed, I was exhausted in a way sleep could not fully fix. Mark turned off the lamp and lay beside me in the dark. After a while, he said, "Do you regret going to her office?" I thought about Vanessa's face when she realized everyone had heard her say, "It was one bag." I thought about Greg's expression when he saw her work email on the receipt. I thought about the beige bag hanging from her arm like a confession she still refused to put down. "No," I said. Mark was quiet. Then he reached for my hand under the blanket. "Good." I stared into the darkness. For so long I had believed that keeping peace meant avoiding the moment when everyone looked. But maybe real peace begins after the looking. After the truth has stepped into the room. After the person who crossed the line realizes the line was real. Vanessa had built her image in glass offices, luxury stores, and carefully edited posts. But glass has one weakness. It looks solid until the first crack. And today, in front of her manager, her coworkers, and the life she had pretended to earn, I heard that crack run all the way through. By the next morning, the family had split into 2 groups. The people who knew what Vanessa had done, and the people who preferred being angry at me because that was easier. My phone looked like it had been dropped into a fire. Missed calls. Voicemails, texts, group chat notifications, Facebook alerts from people I had not spoken to in years who suddenly felt qualified to comment on my marriage, my character, and my decision to involve the police. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, scrolling through the messages while Mark stood at the counter making toast neither of us wanted. Linda had written at 6:12 a.m., "Rachel, please call me. This has gone too far." Aunt Susan had written at 6:20. There were better ways to handle this than humiliating a woman at her workplace. Mark's cousin Tyler wrote, "I don't know all the details, but police? Really?" That one almost made me laugh. I don't know all the details, but let me judge anyway. Then I saw Vanessa's newest Facebook post. It was longer than the others. A carefully written paragraph about betrayal, jealousy, and women who tear other women down because they cannot stand seeing them succeed. She did not name me, but she didn't need to. Half the family knew exactly who she meant, and the other half were probably messaging each other to ask. The post ended with, "I have always worked for everything I have. I will not let someone rewrite my story because they are bitter about their own." I stared at the screen, worked for everything I have. My credit card statement disagreed. Mark set a plate in front of me. "You need to eat something." "I'm not hungry." "You said that yesterday too." I looked up at him. "Your family thinks I'm a monster." My family doesn't know what to think. No, some of them don't know what to think. Others already decided thinking is too much work. He sat across from me. I'm going to respond in the group chat. I froze. What? He picked up his phone. I should have done it sooner. Mark, no. His voice was quiet but firm. You've been the one documenting, explaining, staying calm, taking screenshots, answering questions. I need to say something. I watched him type. For a strange moment, I wanted to stop him. Not because he was wrong. Because I had spent so long handling things alone that someone helping me felt unfamiliar. He read the message aloud before sending it. For anyone commenting without facts, Rachel filed a police report after her credit card was used without permission, and a disputed receipt showed Vanessa's Crown and Lake Realty work email attached to the purchase. Vanessa also contacted Rachel afterward and offered to pay privately. This is not jealousy. This is not drama. Please stop blaming the person who reported the fraud instead of the person who created the situation. I stared at him. He looked up. Too much? My throat felt tight. No. He sent it. The group chat went silent. For nearly 5 full minutes, no one wrote anything. Then Tyler responded. Wait, her work email was on the receipt? Aunt Susan wrote, I didn't know that. Linda did not respond. Vanessa did, not in the group chat. She texted Mark directly. You are dead to me. Mark looked at the message and turned his phone face down. For a second, I saw the pain cross his face. Even when someone is wrong, even when someone hurts the person you love, cutting through family ties still leaves a wound. I'm sorry, I said. He shook his head. Don't. But no, Rachel, don't apologize because someone else finally got consequences. I nodded, but I could not speak. 20 minutes later, Daniel called. Mark answered and put him on speaker. Daniel sounded like he had been awake all night. Did she post again? He asked. Yes, Mark said. Daniel gave a tired laugh. Of course she did. How are you? I asked. He was quiet for a moment. I found more. My stomach sank. What kind of more? More cards, more statements, store accounts. A couple of them are under her name, but I don't recognize the mailing addresses. Mark frowned. What do you mean? I mean, some statements were sent to a P.O. box. I closed my eyes. Of course. A hidden drawer was not enough for Vanessa. She needed a hidden mailbox too. Daniel continued. I went through our bank account. There are payments I didn't understand before. Small ones, regular, different names. I thought they were subscriptions or business expenses. How much debt are we talking about? Mark asked. Daniel did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was flat. I don't know yet. At least $40,000. The kitchen went silent. $40,000. That number sat between us like a third person. I thought it was maybe 20, Mark said. Me too, Daniel replied. Then I found the store financing. Jewelry, clothes, furniture, a personal loan from a lender I've never heard of. And there's something else. I gripped my coffee mug. What? She applied for a line of credit 6 months ago. She used household income, including mine. I didn't sign anything. Mark stood up. Daniel, I know. You need a lawyer. I called one this morning. That was the first smart thing I had heard all day. Daniel's voice lowered. I also called my sister. The one who had the weird charges, I asked. Yeah, she went back through her old bank records. It was the same department store. I closed my eyes. The pattern was no longer just a shadow. It had shape now. Daniel said, she cried when I told her. I'm sorry, I said. She blamed herself for a year. She thought she had clicked some bad link or used her card on a fake website. Vanessa made jokes about it. She told everyone my sister was careless. My anger rose slowly, not hot, not wild, but deep. That was Vanessa's real skill. Not stealing, rewriting. She stole, then rewrote the victim as careless. She lied, then rewrote suspicion as jealousy. She got caught, then rewrote consequences as cruelty. Daniel took a shaky breath. Rachel, my sister wants to talk to you. Not to pressure you, just she wants to tell you something. Okay. A minute later, Daniel added her to the call. Her name was Melissa. I had met her maybe 3 times at family events. She was soft-spoken, a nurse, married with 2 little kids. I remembered Vanessa once calling her sweet but scattered. Now I wondered what Vanessa had been hiding behind that label. Melissa's voice trembled when she spoke. Rachel? Yes. Hi, Melissa. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry it happened to you too. She let out a small, broken laugh. I didn't even know it happened to me until last night. No one spoke. Then Melissa continued. Last year, after Thanksgiving, I had almost $900 in charges at a department store and a cosmetics counter. I thought my card got skimmed. I was so embarrassed. Vanessa told me not to make a big deal because banks deal with it all the time. She said I probably used my card on some weird discount site. My fingers tightened around the mug. Did Vanessa have access to your wallet? Yes, Melissa said. She moved my purse from the kitchen to the guest room because she said one of the kids might spill something on it. The same excuse. A purse moved for safety. A card used later. A victim made to feel careless. Melissa's voice cracked. She hugged me when I cried about it. She hugged me, Rachel. That broke something in me. Not loudly, just a quiet fracture, because I imagined Vanessa comforting a woman she had stolen from, using kindness as camouflage. I'm so sorry, I said again. Melissa sniffed. I don't want money. I got it back from the bank. I want her to stop making people feel crazy. I looked at Mark. His face was pale. Daniel said, Melissa is willing to talk to the officer if needed. I'll pass her information along, I said. After the call ended, I sat very still. The toast on my plate had gone cold. Mark leaned against the counter, both hands gripping the edge. This wasn't one mistake, he said. No, this wasn't one bag. No. He looked at me. She's been doing this. I nodded, and everyone kept giving her privacy, benefit of the doubt, family protection. Room, I said. Mark frowned. What? My mom once told me some people don't steal all at once, they test what you'll tolerate first. He sat down slowly. I wish I had listened sooner. So do I. The words came out before I could soften them. Mark took them quietly. He deserved that. By noon, Linda finally called again. This time I did not answer. Mark did. He put her on speaker without me asking. Mom, he said. Linda's voice sounded smaller than usual. Mark, I need to talk to Rachel. She's here. Rachel? I stared at the phone on the table. Yes. There was a pause. I didn't know about the receipt. I figured that out yesterday. Vanessa told me you were twisting things. I know. She said the email could have been entered by mistake. It wasn't. Linda took a shaky breath. I spoke with Daniel. My eyes moved to Mark. And he told me about the drawer. The word drawer sounded different in Linda's voice. Heavier, like it had opened in her mind too. He told me some of the papers inside had my information. Yes, I said. He said there were copies of old family documents. Yes. Another pause. Then Linda whispered, I gave those to her. I went still. Mark leaned forward. What? Linda's voice trembled. A few years ago, when Daniel and Vanessa were refinancing, she said she was helping organize family emergency information. She said it would be smart to have copies of important documents in one place. I gave her some old paperwork, addresses, insurance copies, tax forms from when I helped Daniel with something. I closed my eyes. Vanessa had not only stolen access, sometimes people had handed it to her because she sounded organized, responsible, successful. Linda continued. I thought she was being helpful. Mark said, Mom, I thought she was the one who had everything together. That sentence hung there, because that was what image does. It makes people mistake polish for trustworthiness. Linda began to cry. I defended her. No one said anything. I defended her to you, she said to me. I told you not to ruin her life. My voice was quiet. Yes. I'm sorry. I stared at the phone. I had imagined Linda apologizing so many times in my head. In those imaginary versions, I was gracious, warm, ready to forgive. In real life, I felt tired. So tired. Thank you for saying that, I said. It was honest. It was also all I had to give. Linda sniffed. What happens now? That depends on the investigation. No, I mean with the family. I looked across the table at Mark. I don't know. Linda's voice cracked. I don't want us to fall apart. Then stop asking the wrong people to hold everything together, I said. She was quiet. This time she did not argue. After the call, Mark looked at me. You okay? No, he nodded. Yeah. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Then another. Then a text. This is Officer Ramirez. Please call when available. I called immediately. Officer Ramirez answered on the second ring. Miss Bennett, I'm calling to update you. We contacted the boutique. They are preparing records for release. We also spoke with Crown and Lake Realty's legal department. My stomach tightened. Okay. They confirmed that Miss Harper has been placed on administrative leave pending internal review. I looked at Mark. His eyebrows lifted. Officer Ramirez continued. Her employer is concerned because her company email appeared on a disputed transaction. They are also conducting an internal audit regarding client information access. A strange chill moved through me. Client information. For days, the family had treated this like an embarrassing personal issue. But Vanessa worked with wealthy clients, buyers, sellers, people submitting financial documents, income records, bank letters, identification. If she was willing to keep family documents in a drawer, what else had she kept? Officer Ramirez asked, Do you know whether Miss C. Harper ever had access to your social security number? I don't know, I said. Possibly through family documents, but I'm not sure. I recommend you place a fraud alert or credit freeze with the major credit bureaus. Your husband should consider the same. We started monitoring, but we'll freeze them. Good, she paused. Also, Miss Harper contacted you after you instructed her not to. Yes, I forwarded the latest message. We received it. Continue saving everything. Do not respond. I won't. After I hung up, I told Mark everything. He ran a hand through his hair. Administrative leave. Yes. Internal audit. Yes. She's going to say you got her suspended. She got herself suspended. He nodded, but his face was grim. Because we both knew what came next. Vanessa would not respond to losing control with silence. She would escalate. She did. By that afternoon, Vanessa's Facebook post had changed. The old one was gone. A new one appeared. This time, it was less poetic. I am being targeted by a relative who has always resented me. She came to my workplace with lies and police threats, trying to destroy my career. I have been advised not to say more, but I will not let false accusations win. False accusations. I took a screenshot. Then I opened the family group chat. Vanessa had posted there too. Since everyone seems so interested in my life, maybe Rachel should explain why she has been collecting information on me, like some obsessed stalker. Aunt Susan replied, Vanessa, did you use Rachel's card? For nearly 3 minutes, no one wrote anything. Then Vanessa responded, I made a mistake, but Rachel is making it sound criminal. I stared at the screen. There it was, the first crack in the public story. Not I didn't do it. I made a mistake. Mark saw it too. Screenshot, he said. Already done. Then Melissa, Daniel's sister, wrote, Did you make the same mistake with my card last Thanksgiving? The group chat exploded. Messages came in so fast I could barely read them. What? Melissa, what are you talking about? Vanessa? Someone call me. Is this true? Linda wrote, Everyone stop, please, but no one stopped. The family had finally smelled smoke inside the walls. Vanessa responded after several minutes. Melissa, I don't know what Daniel told you, but don't jump into something you don't understand. Melissa wrote back, I understand my purse was moved by you, my card was used afterward, and you told me I was careless. Daniel wrote, Enough, Vanessa. Tell the truth. Then Vanessa left the group chat. The notification appeared quietly. Vanessa Harper left the conversation. For a long moment, I just stared at it. Mark whispered, "That's the first honest thing she's done." I looked at him. He shrugged. "She ran." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Almost. That evening, Daniel came over again. This time, he did not bring an envelope. He brought his wedding ring in his coat pocket. He did not show it to us at first. He sat on the couch with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor while Mark poured coffee. "I asked her to come home and talk," Daniel said. "She refused." "Where is she?" Mark asked. "At a hotel. She won't tell me which one." I sat across from him. "Has she contacted you?" He laughed bitterly. "Oh, yes." He pulled out his phone and read from the messages. "You betrayed me. You chose Rachel over your wife. You were never enough for me. You think your little garage makes you a man?" I saw Mark's jaw tighten. Daniel's voice broke slightly on the last one, but he kept reading. "I did what I had to do to survive in a world where people like you settle for less." He lowered the phone. That one hurt. I did not know what to say, because it was not just cruel, it was revealing. Vanessa had not made one bad choice under pressure. She had built an entire worldview where other people were obstacles, wallets, covers, or disappointments. Daniel reached into his coat pocket and placed his wedding ring on the coffee table. "I'm not putting it back on tonight." Mark sat beside him. "Dan, I don't know if we're done forever," Daniel said. "I can't think that far, but I know I can't go home and pretend this is a rough patch." He looked at me. "Rachel, I need to apologize again." "You don't have to keep apologizing." "Yes, I do." His eyes were red, because I saw things. Not this exactly, but things. The spending, the lies about gifts, the way she talked about people, the way she treated you. I told myself she was just ambitious, just insecure, just under pressure. He looked down at the ring. I made her smaller in my mind so I wouldn't have to see how big the problem was. That sentence stayed with me. Maybe that was how families protected wrongdoing. Not always with lies, sometimes by shrinking the truth until it became manageable. She's just dramatic. She's just insecure. She doesn't think before she speaks. She means well. She's family. One phrase at a time, they made the harm small enough to swallow, until someone finally choked. Daniel stayed for almost 2 hours. We talked through practical steps: lawyer, credit freezes, contacting his sister, preserving documents, not confronting Vanessa alone. Before he left, he stood in the doorway and said, "I don't know what happens to her now." I said, "Neither do I." He nodded. "But I know what happens if everyone protects her again." No one needed to finish that sentence. After Daniel left, Mark and I cleaned the mugs and sat in the quiet apartment. I thought the day was over. Then Linda came. She knocked at 9:15 p.m. Mark opened the door, surprised. "Mom?" Linda stood in the hallway holding her purse with both hands. She looked smaller than usual. No lipstick, no careful church lady posture, just a tired woman in a beige coat with red eyes. "Can I come in?" Mark looked at me. I nodded. Linda stepped inside slowly, as if entering our apartment required permission she was no longer sure she deserved. She sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had built the folder, the same table where Mark had finally said he was with me, the same table where Vanessa's lies had become evidence. Linda looked at the folder, then looked away. "I owe you an apology," she said. "You already apologized on the phone." "Not properly." I sat across from her. Mark stood near the counter. Linda took a breath. "When you first said it might be Vanessa, I didn't want to believe you. Not because you sounded wrong, because you sounded right." That surprised me. She continued. "I have watched Vanessa for years, the comments, the showing off, the little stories that didn't quite line up. I told myself it was insecurity. I told myself Daniel loved her, so there must be more good than bad. I told myself every family has someone difficult." Her eyes filled again, but I also liked what she represented. I frowned. "What do you mean?" Linda gave a sad little smile. "She made the family look successful, polished. She worked in that beautiful office. She talked about important clients. She wore nice clothes. After my husband died, after watching everyone struggle in different ways, I think I wanted to believe someone in the family had made it." The honesty in that statement was painful and maybe necessary. Linda looked at me. "You and Mark were building something real, quietly, responsibly, but Vanessa's success was louder." I said nothing. "She fooled me because I wanted to be fooled." Mark looked down. Linda continued, "And when you threatened that illusion, I treated you like the problem." Her voice broke. "I am sorry." This time, the apology reached something, not forgiveness. Not yet, but something. I looked at her. "I needed you to believe me before the receipt." She nodded, crying now. "I know. I needed you to care more that I was harmed than that Vanessa might be embarrassed." "I know. I needed you not to ask me to sacrifice myself for family peace." "I know." The third "I know" came out almost as a whisper. For a moment, I saw Linda not as the mother-in-law who had pressured me, but as a woman staring at the wreckage of her own denial. That did not erase what she had done, but it made the shape of it clearer. Mark sat beside me. Linda reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. "I brought copies of anything I remember giving Vanessa," she said. "Old documents, family records. I don't know what matters." I took the envelope. "Thank you. And I want to speak to Officer Ramirez." Mark looked at her. "You do?" Linda nodded. "If I helped Vanessa collect information, even without knowing, I need to say that." For the first time in days, I felt a small piece of respect return. "That would help," I said. Linda wiped her eyes. "I also told Susan to stop talking." Mark almost smiled. "How did that go?" "She told me Rachel was being vindictive." I looked at Linda. "And what did you say?" Linda straightened slightly. I said Vanessa used Rachel's credit card and the rest of us should be ashamed for needing a receipt before we cared. The kitchen went silent. Then Mark whispered, Mom. Linda looked at him. I'm late, she said, but I'm not staying wrong. That line stayed with me long after she left. I'm late, but I'm not staying wrong. Maybe that was the best some people could do. Not undo the harm, not erase the delay, but stop standing on the wrong side once the truth became impossible to avoid. After Linda left, I added her envelope to the folder. Mark leaned against the doorway, watching me. This folder is going to need its own apartment, I smiled faintly. Don't joke, it probably has better credit than Vanessa. He laughed, then covered his face. I shouldn't laugh. Yes, you should, I said, otherwise we'll both scream. We stood there together in the kitchen, tired and oddly lighter. Not because things were fixed, they were not. Vanessa was still out there spinning stories. The police investigation was still moving. Daniel's marriage was falling apart. Linda was only beginning to understand what her silence had cost. But the family was no longer united against the truth. That mattered. The next day brought the biggest shift yet. Officer Ramirez called in the afternoon. The boutique provided preliminary information, she said. I gripped the phone. And? The security footage appears to show Miss Harper making the purchase. I closed my eyes. Even though I had known, hearing it still hit hard. She was alone? Yes. The merchant record also indicates the card was manually entered after the chip failed. The receipt was signed electronically. My heart beat once, hard. Can I see the signature? Not yet, but it will be included in the investigative file. Okay. There is something else, Officer Ramirez said. I opened my eyes. What? Crown and Lake Realty's legal department contacted us again. They are conducting an internal review. They discovered Miss Harper had forwarded some client-related documents from her work email to a personal email address. A cold wave moved through me. That sounds serious. It may be. It's separate from your report for now, but it could become relevant if there is evidence of misuse. I thought of the drawer. The copies, the lists, Vanessa collecting pieces of people, names, numbers, addresses, lives reduced to information she could use when she needed another step up. Officer Ramirez continued. Please continue not engaging with her directly. Things may escalate as more people become aware. They already have, I said. I figured. After I hung up, I told Mark. He sat down slowly. Client documents? Yes. She could go to jail. I did not respond, because that possibility had been hovering over everything, but no one had wanted to say it plainly. Jail, charges, court, a life permanently altered. And still, beneath all of it, one truth remained. I had not done this to Vanessa. I had opened the door, she had built the room behind it. That evening, the family group chat stayed quiet. No messages from Vanessa, no dramatic posts, no vague quotes, no claims about jealousy. The silence felt different now. Not like peace, like fear. At 10:03 p.m. my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I knew it was Vanessa before I opened it. You think you won because Linda cried and Daniel ran to you? You haven't won anything. You turned everyone against me. I hope you're proud when my children find out their mother was destroyed by a woman who couldn't let go of a shopping mistake. I stared at the words. Shopping mistake. Even now, even with footage, even with receipts, even with her own messages. She still wanted to shrink it. I did not respond. I forwarded it to Officer Ramirez. Then I took a screenshot. Mark read it over my shoulder. She really doesn't get it, he said. No. What do you think she wants? I thought about the designer bag, the office, the posts, the tears, the insults, the drawer. I think she wants reality to apologize for making her look bad. Mark sat beside me. That's not going to happen. No, I said. It's not. Before bed, I opened the folder one more time. The timeline now stretched across several pages. What had started with 3 charges had become a map of denial, pressure, evidence, confession, and collapse. I added the latest note. Boutique footage appears to show Vanessa making purchase. Crown and Lake reviewing possible forwarding of client documents. Linda willing to cooperate. Melissa willing to speak about prior incident. Vanessa continues minimizing and blaming. I set the pen down. For the first time, I understood something clearly. This was never just about a credit card. It was about how long a person can harm others when everyone around them keeps explaining instead of confronting. It was about how image can become armor. It was about how families sometimes confuse loyalty with silence and kindness with surrender. And it was about what happens when one person finally says no. No, I will not keep this private so you can keep lying publicly. No, I will not accept repayment in exchange for my silence. No, I will not let you call theft a mistake because the word crime makes everyone uncomfortable. I closed the folder. Mark was waiting by the bedroom door. You coming? In a minute. He nodded and went ahead. I stayed at the table, looking at the quiet apartment we had worked so hard to build. The old cabinets, the cracked tile, the small window over the sink. Nothing designer, nothing impressive, nothing Vanessa would have envied. And yet, for the first time, I saw it differently. This place was honest, every bill paid, every chair bought with our own money, every ordinary thing earned without taking from someone else. Vanessa had spent years trying to look like she belonged in rooms full of wealth, but she had never understood the simplest form of dignity, owning what was yours and leaving alone what wasn't. For 2 weeks after the office incident, Vanessa went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, not guilty quiet. The kind of quiet that felt like someone holding their breath behind a closed door, waiting for the right moment to strike again. There were no new Facebook posts, no vague quotes about jealousy, no dramatic messages in the family group chat, no calls from unknown numbers after midnight. just silence. At first, I thought maybe she had finally understood the seriousness of what she had done. Then Officer Ramirez called. "Miss Bennett," she said, "I wanted to give you an update. I was at work, standing near the window in an empty conference room. Downtown Chicago stretched below me in gray blocks and shining glass. Cars crawled along the streets like tiny pieces on a board. What happened?" I asked. "We received the footage from the boutique. Even though I already knew what it would show, my stomach tightened. And? The footage shows Miss Harper at the register during the transaction. The cashier attempted the chip reader, then manually entered the card information. Miss Harper appeared to provide the information verbally and from a note on her phone." I closed my eyes. A note on her phone. Not a moment of weakness, not a misunderstanding, not a shopping mistake. She had saved my card information. Officer Ramirez continued, "The signed receipt also does not match your signature." I expected that. There's more. The shoe store footage also appears to show her making the second purchase. The department store transaction is being reviewed, but the loyalty account information matches her email. I leaned against the wall. What happens now? The case will be reviewed for charges, because there may be additional concerns involving personal identifying information. Daniel and Melissa's statements could become important. I looked through the window at the city. For so long, this had felt like a family war, but now it was something else. Records, statements, footage, reports, facts lining up in a way no family speech could undo. Officer Ramirez paused. "I also want to inform you that Miss Harper retained an attorney." I let out a slow breath. "Okay. That is normal. Do not contact her. If she contacts you, save it and forward it." "I understand." After I hung up, I stayed in the conference room for a few minutes. I thought I would feel relieved. Instead, I felt sad. There was no pleasure in having proof that someone had betrayed you. Proof did not erase the betrayal. It just stopped other people from calling it your imagination. That evening, I told Mark everything. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, silent, both hands wrapped around his coffee mug. "A note on her phone," he said finally. "Yes." "So she had your card number saved?" "Yes." He looked sick. "That means it wasn't just from memory. It wasn't just opportunistic." "No." His jaw tightened. "She planned it." I nodded. Mark stood suddenly and walked to the window. For a long moment, he stared down at the street below. I watched his reflection in the glass. This whole thing had changed him, not in some dramatic movie-like way. He did not become loud or aggressive. He did not suddenly turn into a man who wanted revenge. But something in him had straightened. The part that used to bend automatically toward his family's comfort now paused and asked whether that comfort was costing someone else too much. That mattered. He turned back to me. "I keep thinking about all the times she made jokes about you being careful with money." I gave a tired smile. "She had a lot of jokes." "She wasn't joking," he said. "She was resenting you." I looked down at the table. Maybe he was right. Vanessa had always framed my discipline as dullness, my budgeting as fear, my simplicity as failure. But maybe what really bothered her was that I owned my life honestly. No performance, no borrowed image, no unpaid costume, just numbers that matched reality. Mark sat down again. "I'm sorry she did this to you." I looked at him. "She did it to us." He seemed surprised. Then his face softened. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She did." A week later, Daniel filed for legal separation. He called Mark first, then asked if he could speak to me too. When he came over, he looked calmer than before. Still exhausted, still hurt, but no longer spinning. He sat on our couch with both hands folded between his knees. "I met with a lawyer," he said. "I'm protecting the business, freezing joint accounts where I can, separating debts, trying to figure out what I'm actually responsible for." Mark sat beside him. "And Vanessa?" Daniel laughed once, bitterly. "She says I abandoned her when she needed me most." I did not say anything. Daniel looked at me. "She also says you poisoned everyone against her." "That sounds like Vanessa." "It does." He rubbed his face. "The worst part is, I keep remembering things, little things. Times when she came home with something new and I asked about it, and she made me feel cheap for asking. Times she said I didn't understand her career. Times she told me successful people take risks." He shook his head. "I thought maybe marriage meant trusting your spouse even when things felt off." "Trust is not the same as ignoring your instincts," I said. He looked at me for a long moment. "No," he said, "it's not." Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small folded paper. "This is for you." I took it. It was a check for $3,485. I looked up sharply. "Daniel, no, please. No, the bank already credited the disputed amount. I know, then I can't take this." His eyes filled. "I need to do something." "You are doing something. You're telling the truth. You're cooperating. You're protecting yourself and your sister." "That doesn't feel like enough." "It is." He looked down, ashamed. "She was my wife, and she was the one who made the choice." He swallowed hard. I slid the check back across the coffee table. "Don't pay for what she did just because you were close to her when she did it." Daniel stared at the check. Then slowly he picked it up and folded it back into his jacket. "Thank you," he whispered. After he left, Mark shut the door and leaned against it. "You handled that better than I would have." "No," I said. "I almost took it." He blinked. "You did?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because part of me wanted the whole thing to feel simple. Money taken, money returned, story over." Mark came to sit beside me. "But it's not simple." "No, it never had been. The money was the easiest part to measure. The harder things had no exact number. The nights I did not sleep. The way my hands shook after Vanessa's first threat. The humiliation of being treated like the problem by people who should have protected me. the quiet grief of realizing that being family did not automatically make someone safe. A month after the police report, Crown and Lake Realty terminated Vanessa. We did not hear it from her. We heard it from Daniel, who heard it from her attorney. The company had finished its internal review. They claimed she had violated policies by using her company email for personal transactions tied to a fraud investigation and by forwarding client-related documents to a personal account without authorization. Whether that would lead to separate legal consequences, I did not know. But Vanessa's polished office life was over. The image had cracked, then shattered. The family reacted in waves. Some people apologized quietly. Some pretended they had never doubted me. Some disappeared completely because admitting they had defended the wrong person required more courage than they had. Aunt Susan sent one text. "Rachel, I should have waited for facts before speaking, I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Thank you." That was all. I was learning that forgiveness did not have to be immediate, emotional, or generous enough to make everyone comfortable. Sometimes forgiveness began as a locked gate with a small window. You could speak through it. But not everyone got to come back inside. Linda changed the most. Not overnight. People rarely change that cleanly, but she tried. She met with Officer Ramirez and explained what documents she had given Vanessa over the years. She called Melissa and apologized. She stopped using the family group chat as a place to smooth everything over with gentle words and no accountability. One Sunday, she invited Mark and me for dinner. For the first time in our marriage, I said no. Mark looked at me when I declined, not disappointed, just waiting. After I hung up, he asked, "Too soon?" "Yes," he nodded. "Okay." That one word again. "Okay." No argument, no pressure. No, she's my mom. No, it would mean a lot. Just respect. A few days later, Linda came to our apartment instead. She brought apple pie in a glass dish covered with foil. It was the kind of thing she did when she wanted to apologize without making the apology the only object in the room. I let her in. Mark was at work, so it was just the two of us. For a moment, we stood awkwardly in the kitchen. Then Linda placed the pie on the counter and said, "I know pie doesn't fix anything." I almost smiled. "No, it doesn't. But it gives me something to do with my hands while I say I'm sorry again." That time, I did smile a little. We sat at the table. The folder was gone now, not gone entirely. It was stored in a plastic file box in the closet, organized and ready if needed, but it no longer lived on the kitchen table like a permanent guest. Linda noticed. "You put it away?" "Yes." "That must feel good." "It feels necessary." She nodded. Then she looked at me with tired eyes. "I keep thinking about what you said, that I asked the wrong person to keep the family together." I said nothing. "You were right." I looked down at my hands. I didn't want to be right. I know. For once, that answer did not make me angry. Linda folded her napkin slowly. "I always thought family loyalty meant keeping things inside the family, protecting people from the outside world, but I think I confused protection with concealment." "That's easy to do when you love someone," I said. She looked surprised by my gentleness. Maybe I was too. "I did love Vanessa," she said. "Maybe I still do. I don't know how to turn that off, but I can't pretend love means pretending she didn't hurt people. That's a good place to start." Linda's eyes filled, but she did not cry this time. "I don't expect you to trust me right away." "Good," I said. She blinked. I took a breath. "I'm not saying that to punish you. I just don't want to pretend we're back to normal because we had one honest conversation." Linda absorbed that. Then she nodded. "You're right. I need time. I'll give it. And if I say no to dinners, calls, holidays, or conversations for a while, I need that no to be respected. It will be." I studied her face. She meant it, at least in that moment, and that was something. Not everything, but something. When she left, she hugged me at the door. This time, I chose to hug her back. Not tightly, not fully, but enough to say maybe. The criminal case moved slowly. That was another thing real life did not do like movies. There was no dramatic courtroom scene the next week, no instant handcuffs, no satisfying speech from a judge. No single moment where everyone watched justice arrive in perfect lighting. There were interviews, forms, calls, waiting, more waiting. Vanessa's attorney contacted the prosecutor. Discussions began. I was told there might be a plea agreement. Because it was a first known charge and the amount was under a certain threshold, the outcome might involve restitution, probation, mandated financial counseling, or other penalties rather than prison. At first, that bothered me. Not because I wanted Vanessa locked away forever, but because some part of me wanted the punishment to feel as heavy as the harm. Then Officer Ramirez said something that stayed with me. Accountability isn't always as dramatic as people imagine. Sometimes it's just a record that follows a person who thought nothing would. A record. That was what I had built from the beginning. Not revenge. A record of what happened, of what was said, of who was harmed, of who tried to hide it, of who finally told the truth. Vanessa eventually agreed to a plea arrangement. She admitted to unauthorized use of my credit card information. She was ordered to pay restitution to the bank, complete financial counseling, perform community service, and remain under probation. The issue involving client documents stayed under separate review, and I was never told every detail of what happened there. Part of me wanted more answers. Part of me was grateful I did not have to know every ugly thing. Daniel proceeded with the separation. Melissa filed her own report, though her case was older and harder to prove. Still, she said filing it helped her feel sane again. Linda slowly rebuilt relationships, one honest conversation at a time. And Vanessa? Vanessa moved out of Daniel's house. For a while, she stayed with a friend. Then I heard she relocated to another suburb and took a lower-paying administrative job outside real estate. Her social media accounts vanished for several months. When one reappeared, it had no designer bags, no luxury office selfies, no captions about shining, just a profile photo cropped so tightly you could barely see the background. I did not follow her. I did not check. I did not need to. Because the end of my story was not Vanessa losing everything. It was me no longer organizing my life around what people like Vanessa might do next. 6 months later, Mark and I bought our house. Not the biggest one we had looked at, not the newest, not the one with the perfect kitchen or the beautiful staircase. It was a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood outside the city with a little backyard and a porch that needed repainting. The living room had old hardwood floors and the upstairs bathroom still had blue tile from another decade. But when we walked in, I knew. The house felt honest, like something built slowly, like something that did not need to impress anyone to be real. On closing day, Mark handed me the keys in the empty living room. "We did it," he said. I looked around at the bare walls, the dusty windows, the sunlight falling across the floor. "Yes," I said, "we did." He stepped closer. "I hate that all this happened before we got here." I turned the keys over in my hand. "I don't." He looked surprised. "You don't?" "I hate what Vanessa did. I hate how your family reacted at first. I hate that I had to fight so hard to be believed. But I'm glad we learned what kind of foundation we were building before we bought a house together." Mark's face softened. I continued, "I needed to know you could stand beside me when it was uncomfortable." He nodded slowly. "And did I?" I looked at him. Eventually, he winced. I smiled faintly. "But yes, you did." He accepted that. That was another thing I loved about the newer version of us. We did not have to sand down the truth until it felt smooth. We could hold it with rough edges. A few weeks after we moved in, we had a small housewarming dinner. Not a big family event, just people who had earned a place in our peace. Daniel came with Ethan. Melissa came with her husband and kids. Linda came too, carrying another apple pie and a small potted plant for the porch. Vanessa was not invited. No one asked why. That might have been my favorite part. For once, no one asked the injured person to explain the boundary. During dinner, Daniel looked lighter than I had seen him in months. Not happy exactly, but freer. Ethan helped Mark assemble patio chairs in the backyard. Melissa's kids ran through the empty hallway laughing. Linda helped me in the kitchen. For a moment, it reminded me of that night at her house months earlier when she had stood by the sink and told me not to ruin Vanessa's life. This time, she handed me a clean plate and said, "You look peaceful here." I looked around the kitchen. There were boxes still unpacked near the pantry. The faucet dripped if you turned it too far left. One cabinet door did not close properly. But she was right. "I am," I said. Linda smiled softly. "I'm glad." I believed her. After dinner, everyone gathered in the backyard. The grass needed work, and the fence leaned slightly near the back corner. But the evening air was warm, and the sky was turning gold behind the trees. Mark stood beside me on the porch. Daniel and Melissa were laughing about something near the patio table. Linda was showing Ethan how to cut pie without destroying the crust. For a moment, the scene looked ordinary. A family in a backyard. People eating dessert. Voices overlapping. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. Just life continuing after a hard truth. Mark touched my shoulder. "What are you thinking?" I watched Linda hand Ethan a slice of pie. "I'm thinking I used to believe peace meant nothing bad was happening. And now I think peace means bad things can happen, but you don't have to lie about them." He nodded. "That sounds like something a spreadsheet villain would say." I laughed. A real laugh. For the first time in a long time, it did not feel like exhaustion pretending to be humor. It felt like me. Later, after everyone left, Mark and I stood in the kitchen surrounded by plates, cups, and half-empty serving dishes. The house was quiet. Our house. I washed dishes while he dried them. At one point, he picked up the credit card we had used for moving expenses. It was sitting on the counter beside a receipt from the hardware store. He held it up. "Want me to lock this in a vault?" I gave him a look. "Very funny." He grinned, then his expression softened. "I'm proud of you." I turned off the water. "For what?" "For not letting them make you small." I looked down at the sink. For months, people had used different words for what I had done. Dramatic, cold, vindictive, obsessed, unforgiving, extreme. But Mark's words felt closer to the truth. I had refused to become small enough for someone else's wrongdoing to fit comfortably in the room. That was all. I dried my hands and leaned against the counter. When I first saw the charges, I thought the worst part was the money. Mark leaned beside me. "It wasn't." "No. What was?" I thought about Vanessa's bag on the dining room chair. Linda's voice asking me not to say her name like she was a criminal. The family group chat telling everyone to calm down. Vanessa calling it one bag, the receipt, the drawer, the silence after the truth finally landed. The worst part, I said, was realizing how many people would rather protect a lie than face an uncomfortable truth. Mark nodded slowly. And the best part, I looked around the kitchen, at the cracked blue tile, at the old cabinets, at the keys hanging near the door, at the life we had built without stealing, pretending, or performing. The best part, I said, was realizing I didn't have to be one of them. A year ago, I might have let Vanessa pay me back quietly. I might have accepted an apology that was really just panic in nicer clothes. I might have gone to family dinners and swallowed the story everyone preferred. A misunderstanding, a mistake, a private issue, one bag. But not anymore, because I had learned something that changed me. Kindness without boundaries is not kindness. It is an invitation for the wrong people to keep taking. Family without accountability is not loyalty. It is protection for the person doing harm. And silence is not peace when the truth is being buried underneath it. Vanessa thought my greatest weakness was that I liked order, that I followed rules, that I kept records, that I believed numbers mattered. She was wrong. Those things were not weakness. They were how I found my way out of the fog she created. She used my credit card because she thought I would be too polite, too embarrassed, too pressured by family to do anything real. She thought I would ask for my money back. She thought I would cry at the dinner table. She thought I would accept a private transfer and let her keep her perfect image. But I did not ask for money. I filed the report, and when the truth needed a place to arrive, I carried it straight into the office where her lie had felt safest. People later asked if I regretted it, if I wished I had handled it more quietly, if I thought maybe I had gone too far. My answer was always the same: no, because I did not ruin Vanessa's life. I simply stopped letting her use mine as a hiding place. And that was the first truly peaceful thing I had done in years.